Apocalypse begins by copying Magneto, controlling the magnetic field. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. 50 don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now. Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. Do robots dream of electric sheep? After taking off, Xiaojin drove the plane and quickly climbed to an altitude of more than 5,000 meters above the ground. This height can avoid the attacks of most flying beasts at this height. The plane sailed for a while before arriving at the designated area. Xiaojin slowed down. The side door of the Gulfstream 650 was forcibly opened by Chu Xiu using a magnetic field. For a moment. Terrible airflow roared into the cabin. The plane jolted violently. C. With a thought, Chu Xiu used the magnetic field to stabilize the plane's attitude. Forcibly stop the jolt. It's time to act, Carla. Yes. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, Kara nodded. Then he jumped down from the side door without hesitation. The moment Carla jumped off, Chu Xiu controlled the magnetic field to close the hatch. The whistling airflow stopped immediately. Boss, don't we have to answer Kara? Xiaojin asked 580 curiously. Need not go directly back to Yijiang Garden, Chu Xiu said flatly. The other side. Kara, who jumped down, turned her head down, swooping straight down to the ground. It's worth noting that Kara was not carrying a parachute. The whole person, no, I should say the whole machine, just jumped down with bare hands, dived to the ground. Soon she reached the terminal velocity of free fall. Nearly 100 meters of altitude is lost every second. At this speed, Kara soon entered the active range of the flying beast. Hey, gal, roar, but Kara's fall was too fast. Whether it is a winged demon or any other flying beast. Often they have just spotted Kara and haven't had time to react. Kara swooped down from them like a sharp sword. Below. I can already see the scene of H City Zoo. Viewed from the air above the zoo, there seems to be a layer of faint purple mist, which makes it impossible to see the true appearance inside. This is very similar to satellites. Neither were able to observe the conditions around the crack from a distance. Wow. When the drop height reaches the last few hundred meters, the liquid metal on Kara's body, like a balloon, was propped up by the howling wind. Form a metal film that is getting bigger and bigger. The membrane acts like a parachute. Held up by the airflow. In an instant, Kara's falling speed suddenly slowed down. Because the liquid metal is all transformed into a thin film. At this time, Kara only had a slender metal skeleton hanging under the film. Slowly drifting towards the direction of H City Zoo. Hey, can you hear it, Carla? On the other side, Chu Xiu, who had just returned to Yijiang Garden, immediately established communication with Kara. The communication signal is stable, Chief. Carla, who was still floating in the air, replied. In Yijiang Garden. Beizao was debugging the communication device beside him. Chu Xiu stood in front of the screen and kept in touch with Kara. The screen can be transferred. After Beizao finished speaking, he pressed the switch of the communication device. The screen flickered. Then the picture in Kara's eyes appeared. The first view of skydiving image. Transmission steady. Carla, you can land. Chu Xiu's voice just fell. The other side. Kara, who had already floated above the zoo, and when the height dropped to the last tens of meters, immediately melted the film like liquid metal back into her body. The whole person fell straight down. Boom. With a loud bang, Kara landed directly on the grass inside the zoo, tens of meters in height. No harm was done to her. After landing. Carla immediately used her high sensitivity camera to look around. There is a mess around, and there is a forest next to it, but the trees have long been knocked over. The stone road inside the zoo was also trampled by some unknown creatures. Slate shattered. Could not find a complete piece. Ahead, a bumped street sign points in two directions. To the left, the crawl house. To the right, the Elijah Park. Besides, there's something to look out for around here. In addition to the somewhat depressing environment, there doesn't seem to be anything dangerous in the zoo. I have entered the target location and found no danger. Kara stood up and reported. She at this time. It has entered an interference area that cannot be photographed by satellites. but communications were not interrupted. Screen transfer is also very stable. This shows that Beziro's anti-jamming device is working. Received. You move on. Yin Yijiang Garden. Chu Xiu stood in front of the screen, staring at Kara's first-person view. Although I didn't experience it myself, but it's also the first time Chu Xiu has seen what's going on around the crack. Judging from the screenshots sent back so far, the zoo where the space-time crack is located does not seem to be very dangerous, and it is not as dangerous as imagined. At this time, Kara, check the grass on the left front. Beziro seemed to notice something and pointed to Kara. Receive. Inside the zoo, Kara, who received the order, immediately came to the area pointed by Beziro. The grass here is devastated. Like the ground that has been arched over by wild boars, and among these, a purple grass is particularly eye-catching. Take a closer look. In fact, it is just an ordinary grass, but the surface is contaminated with some strange purple energy. These energies are like countless tiny tentacles clings to the grass surface, fluttering in the wind. When Kara approached, these tentacle-like purple energies seemed to sense something. Immediately began to spread in the direction of Kara. Discover unknown energy bodies. Try to get in touch. Kara is a robot after all. There is nothing to worry about. Done. Then he directly reached out to touch this strange purple energy. Zizzy. But the moment Kara's fingertips came into contact with the purple energy, the screen is suddenly interrupted. Snowflakes flashed on the screen in front of Chu Xiu. Stop. Not only the image, but also the communication transmission has been strongly interfered. It lasted for a few seconds until Kara on the other side pulled her hand away from the weird purple energy. Signal transmission is back to normal. Kara, the signal was interrupted. 4.1 Have you been affected in any way? Seeing that the communication was back to normal, Beziro immediately asked at the same time. Chu Xiu in front of the screen found something different, because the picture on the screen is Kara's first point of view, so Chu Xiu can see. At this time, Kara kept looking down at her hand, as if she was in a daze. But a machine. How can you be dazed, Kara? Did that energy just now have any effect on you? With doubts, Chu Xiu asked quickly. Here. Chu Xiu's question. On the screen, Kara's perspective shifted from looking at her hand to looking at the purple grass. Then Kara spoke. I feel so scared. It's fear, Chief. I feel the fear. Chapter 177 Mysterious Behemoth. Spiritual pollution across the screen. Fear. How is this possible? Hearing Kara's reply, Chu Xiu's first reaction was not to believe it. No matter how intelligent Kara is, she is just a robot with self-learning ability. And learning, it takes time. At this point of study time, it is impossible for Kara to become a true artificial intelligence. In other words, she doesn't even count as a silicon-based life. How can you feel the emotion of fear, which is unique to intelligent life? Kara, why do you say you feel fear? Chu Xiu asked. On the other hand, Kara's state seems to have recovered a bit. Not as unusual as before. In my database, fear arises when a person constructs the fringe element of a system, rather than the core constructs that prove ineffective. It was a repressive experience of trying to get out of, but powerless to do. Kara explained. Boss, this is how I felt just now. As a machine, Kara can only follow her own definition of fear. To determine if you are in a state of fear. And as a robot with learning ability, after experiencing the fear experience just now. Kara seemed to be afraid of the strange purple energy. Keep going. Along the way, this purple energy grew more and more. Some cling to the grass, some cling to the branches. The tentacle-shaped energy whiskers keep shaking, like there is life. Kara, on the other hand, will deliberately keep some distance from these strange purple energies. It can be seen she seemed to be really frightened. To make robots afraid? Watching Kara's actions on the screen, Chu Xiu fell into deep thought. Doubting. A strange discomfort through the screen. It made Chu Xiu feel a long-lost cold hair standing up. There are clearly no risk factors in the picture. But as Kara continued to go deeper and further inside the zoo, the discomfort became more and more intense. This discomfort, even by means of signal transmission, let Chu Xiu, dozens of kilometers away, can clearly feel it. Inside the zoo. Kara walks alone in the desolate and dilapidated park. There are footprints left by strange creatures everywhere, and the purple energy in the shape of tentacles is becoming more and more dense. It's like entering a polluted area. There are twisted, tentacle-like, weird energies swaying everywhere. No danger found. Kara moved on point in order not to touch these strange purple energies. She even used liquid metal to change her own form and move forward by walking on stilts. Step over a contaminated purple area. Walk through a polluted leisure park. Finally, Kara came to the inner lake in the center of the zoo. And the sight in her eyes. It was also synchronized to Chu Xiu by the signal transmission device. It was a lake that was as calm as a mirror, and on the lake there is a purple crack that is more than 500 meters long, like an abyss. Tear up this space on the lake. In the cracks, countless tentacle-shaped strange purple energies kept spreading outwards from the cracks. These energies, exactly the same purple energy that Kara touched just now. Crack. In time and space. Chu Xiu was slightly absent-minded. This was the first time he had seen the crack with his own eyes. As the eyes converge, that weird contamination of consciousness is also getting stronger. The discomfort is getting worse. Perhaps because he copied the talent of spiritual shielding before. Chu Xiu stared at the crack for a long time, only to feel a little uncomfortable in his heart. There was no other reaction. What's the situation now? But at this time, Li Qiuyu came over and glanced at the screen. For a moment. She stayed where she was. If Chu Xiu's system could scan sanity, we'll find Li Qiuyu's sanity is going crazy. Hey. Chu Xiu noticed the strangeness and quickly blocked the screen with his body. Call. Li Qiuyu's body softened, and she almost collapsed to the ground. Okay, so scary. She gasped for breath like a drowning person. What do you see? Chu Xiu asked quickly. Tentacles. Countless tentacles. Eyes. Countless eyes. It grows on one person. Long. In. On. Me. Recalling the picture she just saw, Li Qiuyu still had lingering fears and trembled. That kind of fear is not something that humans can overcome. But engraved in the bones, an instinctual fear like an antelope meets a lion. Boss, I have found something here. At the same time, Kara's voice came from the screen. She seemed to have found something and was walking towards the lake. The lake was unusually calm. Not a single ripple. But by the lake, there were several bloody corpses lying there. No, they should not be called corpses to be exact. That's a few pots and stalls of mashed meat. Like being run over by a tank. The flesh and blood turned into mud, sinking deeply into the huge pit by the lake and mixed with the mud. It's the target person. Carla walked to the lake, and from some clothing fragments scattered in the deep pit, judging the corpses, it was the soldier in black that she was looking for. The cause of death was being trampled by some giant creature. Carla inspected these corpses and found that they were all trampled to death by some kind of huge creature. In this deep pit with a diameter of 7 or 8 meters, it's the footprints of unknown creatures. Kara, look in front of you. Just as Carla looked down at the huge footprint pointing communication devices, suddenly, Chu Xiu's voice came. Drip drip at the same time. The biological detection device Kara carried also issued a harsh alarm sound. Kara looked up. The sky was already dark by now. The sun had set, and the scenery around the lake had become very dark. Only the space-time cracks on the lake and the strange purple energies around them emit a dark purple light. Under this purple light, 580 the air 10 meters in front of Kara suddenly turned to face. Gradually, a giant beast, it slowly emerged from the twisted air. Tall figure. Like a big mountain. Several adult pine trees by the lake. At its feet, seemed to be a few weeds. Discover unknown creatures. Carla stood at the feet of this behemoth like an ant. At this time, the beast also found Kara at his feet. Roar. Accompanied by a roar, the terrifying airwaves rolled up the grass and sand on the ground and spread rapidly around. The otherwise calm lake also made waves. Hum at the same time. The crack in time and space across the lake seemed to have an opening response. Countless tentacle-like purple energies poured out of the cracks. Dizzy as these purple energies overflow, signal transmission is also increasingly disturbed. The screen started shaking. The voice from Kara's side began to stutter and was no longer clear. Leader, I send instrument. Boom. It's approaching. Kara's voice became choppy. From time to time there will be a loud noise or 2 point, as if she was being hunted down by something point in Yijiang Garden. Kara, quickly, send your data backup. Through Kara's first point of view, Chu Xiu also saw the appearance of the giant beast point. There was no hesitation point, shouted immediately. Chapter 178 S-Class Ferocious Beast. Icefield Titan. Kara, did you hear that? Get the data over here. Kara. Chu Xiu shouted twice. However, the signal has been completely interrupted. There was no picture on the screen, only a mess of snowflakes. Strangely, the screen is flickering with snowflakes at the same time. From time to time, some disordered pictures composed of dots and lines pop up, and these dots and lines ultimately render. They are all twisted figures that are difficult for humans to understand. It's like a weird existence that piles up a bunch of tentacles, eyes, limbs, and twists this picture. Ordinary people will probably lose their sense value at a glance. Even the awakened ones. Even Li Qiu, whose mental power is dozens of times that of ordinary people, will feel uncomfortable when she sees this picture. However, Chu Xiu and Bei Xiao did not respond. Because Chu Xiu has a spiritual shield, he has a certain defense against the negative influence of the spiritual level. And Bei Xiao, it is simply that there is no fear in the heart point. No matter what kind of picture she saw, she would not feel any fear. Kara's data backup, has it been sent back? Seeing that the signal was completely interrupted, Chu Xiu turned to look at Bei Xiao and asked. Bei Xiao shook his head. Not enough time. Only part of the data was sent back, and Bei Xiao paused. And what? Chu Xiu was aroused by curiosity. He knew that Bei Xiao was not a person who sold off point. And look at how she looks now. It was as if something had happened that even she couldn't explain. And this part of the data that was sent back has also received contamination. Bei Xiao thought for a while and finally used the word pollution to describe what happened. Around the crack in time and space, there is a kind of, I will call it a meme for the time being. This kind of thing can even be transmitted through the signal, affecting you and me in front of the screen. Li Qiu should be very clear about this. As Bei Xiao said, he glanced at Li Qiu, who still had lingering fears. Obviously Li Qiu was polluted by a meme just now. Thus saw something indescribable strange. This part of the data that Kara finally sent back was also contaminated by memes. I'm not sure what the impact of this pollution will be, so I propose delete Kara's backup of consciousness. Bei Xiao said calmly. Now communication is interrupted. The situation in the zoo is unknown. But the last piece of information that Kara sent back proved that she should have been attacked by the giant beast. At the same time. The space-time crack on the lake also opened again. Under this double crisis, Kara's survival rate is completely negligible if you delete the backup of consciousness that Kara has sent back. Now, then Kara will really be dead. There is no possibility of resurrection. As a machine, Kara has done her job. The data she sent back can give us a better understanding of the cracks in time and space. And Kara wasn't necessarily really destroyed either. She's still alive. Bei Xiao seemed to see what Chu Xiu was thinking. She spoke for the first time, not like words that came out of her mouth. Delete it. Chu Xiu shook his head. He didn't think Kara had any chance of survival. Because just now, through Kara's first point of view, Chu Xiu also saw the appearance of the giant beast. Although separated by dozens of kilometers, but the system still scanned the information of this behemoth. Ice Titan, S-Class Beast, S-Class Beast, even the weakest S and the S-Class Kara also has no chance of surviving. Even the current Chu Xiu can't guarantee that he can defeat this beast 100%. But now there is a problem. Why do S-Class Beasts appear in H City? Chu Xiu was a little puzzled. If I remember correctly, the first recorded S-rank beast should have been found in the next door Nix country. Then this fierce beast directly destroyed the two large survivors of NI. Survivors died. Among them, there are many awakeners of LV3 and LV4. Is it the ghost of those soldiers in black? Chu Xiu guessed. Bei Xiao opened the recording just now. Just when Chu Xiu prepared to open the video to check if there was any missing information, drip the signal transmission device that had been interrupted suddenly turned on the green light. Then, the snowflakes on the screen gradually disappeared. A blurry picture was transmitted. Hey, hold on. Can you hear me? In the picture, there was a man's voice. The picture is blurry though, but it's still Kara's first point of view. From the picture, it can be judged that Kara seems to have suffered heavy damage, and the light sensing camera is seriously damaged. And she should have fallen to the ground. So the picture taken is very blurry. It also comes with dropped frames and ghosting. Despite this, it can still be seen that there is a man in the picture. Crawling to Kara's side. He shook Kara. Seems to be trying to wake Kara up. Damn, what a robot. The man's eyes didn't seem to be very good, and after shaking a few times, he realized that Kara was a robot. Through the blurred picture you can see the man's clothes. It was one of those soldiers in black. It's just that he wears a blindfold on his face and seems to have only one eye. ZZ. The transmission is damaged, the hydraulic mechanism is damaged, the photosensitive device is damaged, the energy transmission device is damaged. In the picture, Kara's intermittent voice came, reporting the damage. She's not a full liquid metal robot after all. Kara's interior and the metal skeleton. But now, this metal skeleton, comparable to titanium alloy, has been crushed by a terrifying force. The transmission and hydraulics inside are all damaged, caused Kara to lose the ability to move quickly. Boom. Just then, there was another loud noise in the screen. There seems to be something approaching in the direction of Kara. Damn. Bless yourself, machine. In the blurry picture of Lee Kyans, the one-eyed man seemed to see something terrible. After saying this immediately, he reached out and changed the position of the blindfold on his face. From originally covering the left eye, exposing the right eye, to covering the right eye, exposing the left eye. But in such a small move. But let the figure of a man dissipate fast. It quickly disappeared from the screen. Boss, Kara is done. Task. Just as the one-eyed man disappeared. The liquid metal on Kara's body wriggled for a while, revealing a piece of the wreckage of the instrument. At the same time, a special piece of data is transmitted by Kara. The 10 seconds of lost contact. Kara not only found the instrument that the soldiers in black brought into the zoo, or the wreckage of the instrument. Residual data is also read. And sent over. PS. The picture is a hand-painted version of Iceborne Titan, not drawn by me. This chapter contains pictures. Click the illustration button in the lower right corner of the screen to view the pictures. Chapter 179, Reality Anchor Device. Rescue. After Kara transfers the data, communication is interrupted again. Swish. Chu Xiu stood up suddenly. His eyes looked in the direction of the H-City Zoo. Although he didn't say a word, Beizaro, who was beside him, already understood what Chu Xiu was thinking. If you have to go, I suggest you take this with you. Although it is a semi-finished product, it should be used. Beizaro walked to the corner of the laboratory. From a pile of semi-finished devices, a black device similar to a helmet was found. Didn't we find suitable materials? Chu Xiu recognized that this helmet was the mental shielding device Beizaro had previously designed. But Beizaro clearly said the device has been stuck in the design stage due to the lack of suitable materials. So how can there be a semi-finished product? I really didn't find it. Beizaro nodded and admitted the material limitation. This semi-finished product is made of nanofibers from my nanosuit, so its flaws are obvious. While blocking external forces, it will also hinder the mental power you release. Although you already have protective measures at the spiritual level, but faced with a mimetic contamination medium that we don't yet understand how it works, one more protection means one more chance of survival. Although it will weaken your combat effectiveness. Seemingly worried about the safety of 580 Chu Xiu, Beizaro's tone fluctuated. Compared with the dull tone of the past. A little more serious. Done. Beizaro handed the device to Chu Xiu. Thanks. Chu Xiu planned to refuse, but Beizio's words made him choose to take over the device point, because as Beizio said they now know nothing about how memes work. This thing is different from the beast. The threat of the beast can be seen and touched. But memes, you're not even sure if this thing even exists, therefore it is always a good thing to have one more protection. Also, I suggest you don't stay around the crack for too long and get out as soon as you find Kara. Try to avoid fighting. Mimetic pollution can get worse over time. Zio finally added another sentence. You worried about me? Chu Xiu finally discovered Beizio's difference. In the past, she would never repeat one thing like today. It was as if he was worried that he would never come back. That's right. I'm worried about you. Beizio admitted it generously. When speaking, he kept looking at Chu Xiu. His eyes were as clear and clean as ever. Because I'm afraid you're going to die there. When explaining the reason for his worry, Beizio actually said the word scared. This word came out of Beizio's mouth. It was as surprising as Carla saying she felt scared. When a person constructs the fringe element of a system rather than the core constructs that prove to be ineffective, fear arises. Chu Xiu seemed to understand something. Repeated Carla's definition of fear to Beizio. As a robot, most of Kara's data was input by Beizio before leaving the factory. So Kara's definition of fear, in fact, it is also Beizio's definition of fear. It was a repressive experience of trying to get out of it but being powerless. Sure enough, Beizio answered the next sentence. C. Chu Xiu smiled. It seems that you are not completely emotionless. With a smile, Chu Xiu quickly left Beizio's laboratory. Seeing that Chu Xiu was about to board the plane, Li Qiu's eyes were complicated. In her heart, she wanted to go with Chu Xiu. But at the same time, she also knew very well that she couldn't even resist the memes that flashed across the screen. If we go together, absolutely can't help myself. And it is very likely that it will drag Chu Xiu down. Be careful. I'll wait for you to come back. 5. In the end, Li Qiu let go of her entanglement, like a young daughter-in-law sending her husband away. Deb, give Chu Xiu a kiss. Don't worry, I'll be back. Chu Xiu patted Li Qiu's head lightly and then boarded the plane. The Gulfstream 650 driven by Zheojin taxied off the runway again. Fly straight towards the city center. The runway, which was originally thought to be of little use, turned out to have taken off and landed several times in a row as soon as it was built. Leader, you still flying high? Zheojin asked. Flying at high altitude can avoid the attacks of most flying beasts, but the process of climbing the plane also wastes a lot of time. Need not you send me directly over the zoo and then you climb to the heights. Chu Xiu finished. Lean on the luxurious cockpit and close your eyes. Of course, it is said that he closed his eyes and fell asleep, but Chu Xiu's brain has been thinking about questions. Soldiers in black? The S-rank beast that appeared early, memes, and the fog that came early before S-class monster in the Foga secret that has never been heard before. Chu Xiu couldn't help but wonder about the world he was in. This world, how many secrets are there that I don't know? Chu Xiu fell into deep thought. For ordinary people, as well as most of the weaker awakened ones, the apocalypse is a zombie or a beast. As long as you escape these two, it is equivalent to surviving. As for monsters, that's not something they should think about. But for Chu Xiu, Doomsday is not just about zombies, beasts, or even monsters. He has vaguely touched some areas unheard of in his previous life as ordinary people, areas not eligible for exposure. Leader, we are almost there. In addition, there are flying beasts approaching us. At this moment, Zheojin's voice interrupted Chu Xiu's thinking. Ahead is the sky above the zoo. And before many flying beasts can be seen. Don't worry, you continue to drive yours. Chu Xiu finished. Close your eyes. The magnetic field energy is released. A repulsive magnetic field is formed around the aircraft as a shield. Boom. Soon, a flying beast rammed over but before it got close to the plane, it was bounced off by an invisible repulsive magnetic field point the other side point. Just as Chu Xiu left the lab point, Beizao was not idle either. She immediately analyzed the data that Kara finally transmitted back. The analyzable result caused a trace of fluctuation in her eyes, who had always been calm. Genius design. This chapter contains pictures. Click the illustration button in the lower right corner of the screen to view the pictures. Chapter 180 Aquatic Scaled Lion. The last few minutes. The last piece of data that Kara sent back. It was the residual data of the instruments carried by the black-clothed soldiers. And the remaining part of the data actually let Beizao, who is more genius than genius, call it a genius-like design. But all this has nothing to do with Chu Xiu. Him at this time. Have taken the Gulf Stream 650 and have entered the city center. Beasts of the night, more aggressive than during the day. In the dark night sky, there are constantly flying beasts attacking the plane, but without exception. All were bounced off by the repulsive magnetic field that enveloped the plane. Boss, the zoo is ahead. Zhao Jin was flying the plane. Try to keep yourself from paying attention to the ferocious beasts around you. Understood. You can pull up the height now. Chu Xiu finished. Zhao Jin nodded, pulled the joystick, and the plane began to raise its altitude. In a climbing position. Entered the airspace of H City Zoo. Leader, the destination is Zhao Jin said. Glancing back. But found no one in the cabin. Chu Xiu, who was still sitting just now, actually disappeared, leaving only a wisp of blue smoke. Leader? Zhao Jin shouted in shock. After all, she was new here and didn't know that Chu Xiu still had the ability to teleport. Just as the plane entered above the zoo, Chu Xiu flashed directly outside the cabin. Stop shouting. The plane is not protected now. You quickly raise the altitude. 5. After dropping a word on the radio, Chu Xiu started a free fall. Bad weather tonight. Can't see the stars and the moon. There was only a dim moonlight, obscured by dark clouds, and it was difficult to set off a trace of light. If we talk about the sky, there is still a hint of dim light. That ground. It's downright dark. Since the blackout, there have been no artificial light sources in the city. Chu Xiu in free fall. As if falling into a dark ocean, the dark zoo, like an open mouth with blood, is waiting for Chu Xiu's self-inflicted snare. But the darkness didn't last long. Soon, Chu Xiu saw a ray of light in the darkness below. To be exact, it's a purple glow across the lake. It's a crack. Chu Xiu's heart froze. At the last tens of meters from the ground, the repulsive magnetic field is released. The speed of the fall suddenly slowed down and then stopped. Hover position. It landed precisely in the sky above a forest less than 100 meters away from the lake. Roar. However, the moment Chu Xiu released the repulsive magnetic field, it stopped. The roar of the beast was heard all around below. In the dark woods, fast-moving beast figures appeared. After getting close to where Chu Xiu is, these figures jumped up one by one. Roar, roar. But with the roar in the darkness, a ferocious beast clad in scales appeared. The body is not too big, overall a bit like a cougar, only there is no fur, replaced by scales similar to that of a crocodile. Just out of the crack. Before, in Kara's first perspective, these beasts did not appear, so Chu Xiu speculates these beasts should have just emerged from the cracks in time and space. Roar. These lion-shaped beasts with scales and armor have super jumping ability. The height of a leap. He was able to attack Chu Xiu, who was suspended dozens of meters above the woods. Only. Before they could attack Chu Xiu. A dazzling thunder light exploded in the air. Boom. With a bang, a few destructive thunder lights quickly spread in the air, like a few brontosaurus. The flickering and jumping arcs hit almost every beast. Puff. Puff. You killed the C-rank beast, aquatic scaled lion. Gain experience plus 500. You killed the C-rank beast, aquatic scaled lion. Gain experience plus 500. You kill. You kill. You killed the C-level beasts, aquatic scaled lions. Exclamation mark. Experience gained. 11,500, accompanied by a beep point. The ferocious beasts that jumped into the air were electrocuted into coke and collapsed. This time it provided tens of thousands of experience for Chu Xiu, but at the same time, the roar of lightning also spread. For a moment. As if poking a hornet's nest, roar, hoo ho ho, more and more roars sounded from all directions. Through magnetic field induction, Chu Xiu can see such beasts everywhere in the whole zoo, and they are all approaching in their own direction. How many beasts came out of this wave? Chu Xiu frowned slightly. The number of monsters coming out of the space-time crack is not constant. Sometimes 1.4 flowers, sometimes a group. And the space-time crack that just opened. Obviously a large number of aquatic scale lions came out of it. Chu Xiu glanced at the time. According to Beziro's statistics, the space-time crack will open once every 15 minutes on average. And now, the next opening of the crack is only a few minutes away. Can't be consumed by them. Chu Xiu finished. He flew straight towards the lake not far away. Before getting close to the lake, I felt a strong sense of discomfort. Straight to the brain, and as the distance gets closer, the discomfort is getting stronger. Even if you have a spirit shielding LV1, even if you have a spirit shielding device made by Beziro. It's just that Chu Xiu didn't have hallucinations. System, fill up the mental shield. Chu Xiu thought about it. The system responds with immediate action. Ding. Consumes 100 experience. Spirit shield raised to LV2. Ding. Consumes 1000 EXP. Spirit shield is raised to LV3. Ding. Consumes 10,000 experience. Spirit shield is raised to LV4. Full. Accompanied by the continuous sound of the system prompt. The discomfort disappeared instantly. At the same time, Chu Xiu also felt that his mental strength was stronger than ever. Come to the lake. Chu Xiu's eyes quickly looked around. Some huge deep pits can be seen by the lake, and the diameter of the deep pits is 6 or 7 meters. Obviously. This should be the footprint of that S-rank beast. But there are only footprints around. But he didn't see the existence of that S-rank beast. Have you left? Chu Xiu landed on the edge of the lake, and the induction of the magnetic field spread around, but because of the mental shielding device on his head. The range that causes magnetic field induction is also about 1/3 less than usual. But the impact is not great. Because the inner lake of the zoo has only a small area in total. 2/3 of the search area is enough to cover most of the area around the lake. Found it soon. Chu Xiu sensed Kara, who was half buried in the soil. He flew over quickly. At the same time. Manipulating the magnetic field pulls Kara out of the dirt. ZZ. Kara's ZZ chief energy transmission. Kara's condition is worse than ever seen. The skeleton is torn apart. Without the current control transmitted by the skeleton, the liquid metal on her body has been dripping uncontrollably. Already on the brink of obsolescence. Mount Chapter 181 Battle against S-class beasts. Terrible power. After scouring Kara out of the dirt, Chu Xiu immediately manipulated the magnetic field. Start repairing Kara's damaged parts. Squeak, accompanied by the sound of metal twisting. Kara's metal skeleton began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. After all, Chu Xiu participated in the whole process of Kara's production. Knows the structure of Kara like the back of the hand. In just a moment, he repaired Kara's body. The liquid metal dripping on the ground was also manipulated by Chu Xiu and placed on Kara's body again. Leader, is that you? Kara's state recovered. However, her light sensing camera is still seriously damaged, and Chu Xiu's magnetic field manipulation cannot repair this thing. So her first perspective picture. It should be the same as what Chu Xiu saw on the screen before. It is blurred and ghosted. It's me. Wait for me. I'll take you back to right away. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he continued to use magnetic field induction to search around. Try to find the one-eyed man who just disappeared. Chu Xiu noticed this one-eyed man through Kara's first point of view. His sudden disappearance, apparently a superpower. Moreover, Kara, as a robot, is not completely immune to the interference of MEMS. The one-eyed man was clearly human. But it seems that he is not polluted by MEMS. So close to the crack, He can move freely. So Chu Xiu suspects that this person has some means of resisting MEMS. More importantly, as long as this person is found, many of the previous questions can be answered. Leader, go away. It appeared, but in the process of Chu Xiu's search, Kara's biological detection device suddenly sounded an alarm at the same time. In Chu Xiu's magnetic field induction point, the lakeside, which was originally empty, suddenly appeared a strong magnetic field disorder. Then, an extremely strong biomagnetic field gradually emerged. In reality, where the magnetic field is turbulent, the light begins to distort. A familiar behemoth slowly appeared. It is the disappearing S-class behemoth. Iceborne Titans. Stealth? No, not stealth. I just flew from this direction. Chu Xiu's face changed slightly. He thought it was some kind of stealth at first, but then react. I flew over from the location where the Iceborne Titan appeared. If it is hidden, then he must have hit the Icefield Titan just now. After all, the size of this guy is as huge as a mountain. Zizzy, can you hear me? Chu Xiu. At this time from the communication device in Kara's body, Beiziro's voice came. While Chu Xiu repaired Kara, incidentally, the power supply to the communication device was also restored. Hearing. Say something quickly, because there is still a big battle to be fought. Chu Xiu speaks very fast. Take Kara out of there. Don't fight it, because it doesn't make sense. In Yujiang Garden, Beiziro looked at the screen. Kara's first perspective said quickly, what is meaningless? By the lake. When Chu Xiu heard Beiziro's words, he immediately controlled the magnetic field and took Kara back. Asked at the same time. At this time, the body of the Icefield Titan has been fully revealed. Nearly 100 meters tall. Big body. The whole body is covered with white fur. The upper limbs are extraordinarily sturdy, and at first glance, it looks a bit like a gorilla magnified hundreds of times. But on both sides of the head, there are a pair of horns that are more than 10 meters long. There is also a rhino-like horn on the tip of the nose. In addition, from the top of the head to the back, it is covered with rock-like protrusions. Roar. After showing up, the eyes of the Icefield Titan immediately locked on Chu Xiu and Kara. And crow eyes. There is actually a kind of joke similar to cat playing with mouse. This thing has wisdom. Chu Xiu realized in an instant that the giant beast in front of him had wisdom no less than that of a human being. Beiziro. To be clear, why doesn't it make sense for me to fight it? Chu Xiu finished. Beiziro's voice came over again. Because it's not in the same space as us. According to the data returned by Kara, I speculate that the instrument carried by the group of soldiers in black is a small-scale gravitational space stabilization device. The giant beast in front of you should be in a superimposed state of two spaces, but this state is extremely unstable. Plus, the space stabilization device has been destroyed. 5'SO. It could disappear at any time, and if you get too close and this superposition happens to be broken, there's a good chance you'll be taken to the world it's in. Beiziro spoke very quickly. Chu Xiu was confused when he heard it, but there is one sentence he understands. That is, he may be taken to the world where the monster is. No matter what you think, none of this is a good thing. Kara, let's withdraw. After realizing that the situation was not good, Chu Xiu took Kara away without hesitation. But the Iceborne Titan obviously didn't want to let Chu Xiu go. Roar. Accompanied by a roar, the Ice Titans plunged their hands directly into the ground and grabbed a lot of dirt and rocks. Hit Chu Xiu's head and face in the face. Soil is better to say. It disintegrated in midair, but a boulder weighing several tons smashed towards Chu Xiu. Feel the boulders whistling behind you. Chu Xiu turned around immediately. Several layers of repulsive magnetic fields are formed in front of them. The reason why there is no need to flicker to leave is because Kara is still with him. Blinking works fine though. But it can't bring people to flicker. Boom. With a loud bang. The repulsive magnetic field successfully blocked the impact of the boulder, but the action of force is mutual. The weight of Chu Xiu and Kara is obviously not proportional. to the weight of the boulder during the shock. Although Chu Xiu and Kara were not injured at all, they were bounced off by the magnetic field. 4.1 It slammed into the hillside a few hundred meters away. 2 Big holes were smashed deeply. Mud splashes. The reason for this is actually quite simple. Move 2 magnets of different sizes so that the opposite sides of them are close to each other, and then let go. Among the 2 magnets, the smaller mass will be pushed away by the repulsive magnetic field. That's what happened to Chu Xiu just now. What? Are you? Don't let go. Right. On the hillside, Chu Xiu stood up from the deep pit with a gloomy expression, covered with dirt. But the next second, when Royal Earth is activated, the dirt will automatically shake off. Roar. At the same time, the Iceborne Titan let out a roar again. Open mouth to the sky. He spit out a cold air mixed with ice crystals. This chapter contains pictures. Click the illustration button in the lower right corner of the screen to view the pictures. Chapter 182. Disordered Magnetic Field. Control the spectrum. After spitting out a cold air towards the sky, the Icefield Titan lowered his head, and his playful gaze fell on Chu Xiu and the 2 again. Although it did not continue to attack. But the meaning is already clear. I have the means of long-range attack, and you can't leave. Kara, you go first. Chu Xiu finished, turned around to face the Icefield Titan and slowly lifted off into the sky. Although Beizao had reminded him, right now, if the Icefield Titan was not resolved, the 2 would not be able to leave at all. Exactly. Can't get away with Kara. Chu Xiu is easy to solve alone, and he can leave after a few flashes. Chu Xiu lifted off slowly. Magnetic field energy is released. In the next second, the fences, street signs in the zoo, and even the steel bars in the building were all detached. They quickly gathered around Chu Xiu. At the same time, arcs filled with destructive aura kept jumping from Chu Xiu to these metals. The metal burned red in almost an instant. Electric light briefly illuminated the earth. The area where Chu Xiu was located gradually became brighter. With my current ability, I should be able to deploy a wider range of repulsive magnetic fields and gravitational fields for the first time fighting an S-rank beast. Chu Xiu didn't dare to be careless, and he made a move without reservation. In an instant, the area between Chu Xiu and the Iceborne Titan immediately filled with various chaotic magnetic fields. Some repel a geomagnetic field. Once an object enters the area, it will be weightless. Lift off, and some are attracted to the Earth's magnetic field. Once you enter, you will be attracted by several times the gravity. Certainly, Chu Xiu does not expect the gravitational field and the repulsive magnetic field to cause much damage to the Iceborne Titan. As long as they provide some control, that's enough. 9 Look at the picture of thunder raging ahead. The Icefield Titan seemed to realize that the human in front of him was not the same as the weak humans he had killed before. After a roar, the body nearly 100 meters high jumped up. Like the top of Mount A, he smashed towards Chu Xiu. It came just fine. Chu Xiu did not dodge. Instead, he watched quietly as the Icefield Titan smashed down. Because the front, it has been covered with large and small gravitational and repulsive magnetic fields, it has become a minefield. In the next second, the Icefield Titan smashed over like a mountain. Close comparison. Make the Iceborne Titan's body even bigger, like a mountain. Chu Xiu, who is 1.9 meters tall, looks like an ant in front of it. Just when the big mountain was about to hit the ants. The air suddenly twisted because the body of the Icefield Titan is too large. A single repulsive magnetic field and gravitational field cannot cover it at all. On the contrary, the fall of the Ice Titan triggers multiple magnetic traps at the same time. In an instant, several disordered magnetic fields appeared in front of Chu Xiu. Strong magnetic field fluctuations are formed ahead. The magnetic fields of these properties repel each other, twist and stretch each other, ravaging each other like dough. Zizzy in the middle of the magnetic field. Twisted ball lightning, jumping sparks of electric current, appear one after another. None of this was deliberately made by Chu Xiu. It is a disordered magnetic field, a naturally occurring magnetoelectric phenomenon. And all this, it only happened the instant the Iceborne Titan fell. Boom. With a bang bang point, the nearly 100-meter high ice field titan crashed down in a weird posture. The earth fell apart under its feet. The impacted mud spreads around like waves, but only did not hit Chu Xiu. The ice field titan at this loud time has a very strange posture. Its upper body and one foot are lifted up by an invisible force. The other half of its body was pulled to the ground by an invisible force. It's not so much that the iceborne titan was smashed to the ground. Rather, it was impacted by multiple magnetic fields and fell heavily to the ground at the moment of landing. Roar. The titan let out a roar. It wanted to lower its head and release its frozen breath at Chu Xiu point, but an invisible force held its chin and kept lifting it up. It's a repulsive magnetic field. Roar. The iceborne titan began to struggle. Because it is not controlled by a single magnetic field. So its struggles are valid. But the problem is, Chu Xiu had already laid out more magnetic fields around him. The iceborne titan struggles, causing it to trigger more chaotic magnetic fields. Chaotic magnetic field, like a pair of invisible hands, grab part of the ice titan's body, either pulling up or pulling down. At the same time, a strange phenomenon began to appear with more and more turbulent magnetic fields. Dim light seems to be affected by these magnetic fields gradually. The light begins to twist. The originally dark night suddenly appeared a rainbow-like brilliant light, hovering over the surface of the ice titan's massive body. This is the electromagnetic spectrum. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu's mind suddenly had a hint of enlightenment. As the master of the magnetic field. Can you manipulate other energies in the electromagnetic spectrum, like electromagnetic waves of X-ray, for example, bending the visible light around to achieve the purpose of invisibility? The scene in front of him made Chu Xiu have a series of bold ideas. But now is not the time to think about that. The magnetic trap won't hold the iceborne titan for too long. These chaotic magnetic fields, more by changing the geomagnetic field, make Chu Xiu zero gravity, several times gravity, and anti-gravity in an area at the same time. Makes it difficult for the iceborne titan to move. The gravity of this chaotic, it will make it difficult for the iceborne titan to find the power point. But that doesn't last long, and once it adjusts to the chaotic gravity, it resumes action. But Chu Xiu obviously won't give it this chance. S-class beast. Do you know if you can stop the railgun? Chu Xiu raised his hand. Lights gather around. Invisible magnetic orbits in the air beside Chu Xiu have been erected. Electric light converges on these tracks. Then high temperature around the invisible electric furnace began to quench the metal around Chu Xiu. The melted molten iron reagglomerates, hardened, become a high strength alloy rod, fly towards the surrounding magnetic field orbit. Roar at the same time, the iceborne titan also broke free of a hand. Raise your fist and hit Chu Xiu. A bare fist is as huge as 4 locomotives side by side. Whistling smashed over. But at the same time, the requenched alloy rods were also filled into the magnetic field orbit. A dozen electromagnetic railguns. Also, yep, the iceborne titans. Feel the pain. Chu Xiu put down his hands. Boom. In an instant, the electric light converged. More than a dozen alloy rods break the sound barrier at the same time. At the initial speed of Mach 6, it flew towards the ice titan. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, The Icefield Titan Who Disappeared Suddenly. The Eye of Reality. The speed of Mach 6. Over 2000 meters per second. Almost at the same time Chu Xiu heard the sonic boom. Ahead, on the body of the icefield titan, blood flowers exploded one after another. Huge body. It was overturned to the ground by the force of an alloy rod. Boom. When it fell to the ground, the earth also trembled. But when the electromagnetic railgun knocked down the iceborne titan, it also pushed it out of the range of the magnetic trap. The restriction of the repulsive magnetic field and the gravitational field is lost. The fallen icefield titan turned over quickly, as if it had not been attacked. demonstrated a speed that does not match her huge size. At the same time, open the mouth of the blood basin. Boom. A cold air mixed with ice crystals burst out from his throat. The diameter of the cold air is several meters. Like a white beam of light, it swept towards Chu Xiu, where the cold passes of vegetation instantly freezes into ice. C. Chu Xiu did not hesitate. After 2 consecutive flashes, he teleported directly to a distance of 100 meters, avoiding the cold attack. Kaka. The cold air fell on the hillside behind Chu Xiu. The fresh soil that had just rolled over due to the impact was frozen into ice. It's not dead. Chu Xiu, who flashed to a distance of 100 meters, looked back at the ice field titan. From the outside, Iceborne Titan's injuries appear to be serious. More than a dozen alloy rods 6 times the speed of sound blasted out large holes in various positions on its body. These holes are several meters deep. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of flesh and blood were hollowed out. In some places, you can even see the guts inside. The blood was poured out like no money. Such an injury, on most creatures, it is an absolute fatal injury. But on the huge body of the Icefield Titan, which is nearly 100 meters, it does not appear to be so serious. It's like sticking a dozen toothpicks on a person's body. Although it hurts, but not enough to kill. Roar. After the injury, the Icefield Titan appeared even more violent. The frozen breath in the mouth has not stopped. A direct sweep. Continue to attack where Chu Xiu is now. It's not over yet. Chu Xiu flashed again. While dodging the frozen breath, he looked back to check Kara's position. He still remembered Baizio's words in his heart, so all he had to do was to hold back the Icefield Titan, and he didn't really want to part with the Icefield Titan. Moreover, the defensive power of the Icefield Titan was beyond Chu Xiu's imagination. Hit by a dozen electromagnetic railguns, 2 of them also hit the brain. In the end, it didn't even penetrate the skull, just punched a big hole in the flesh and blood of its epidermis. Raw. Chu Xiu does not want to be entangled, but the wounded Iceborne Titan obviously did not intend to let Chu Xiu go. I saw him growl. Jump up again, and it learned it smarter this time. Instead of rushing towards Chu Xiu directly, he threw a huge fist in the air and smashed down at Chu Xiu. I noticed the sound of breaking air behind me. Chu Xiu just wanted to flicker away. The surrounding air suddenly distorted. To be exact, it's the surrounding space that begins to warp. Chu Xiu turned his head, but saw the Icefield Titan jumping up. His body began to blur. It's like being pulled into another space. In other words, back to another space. Chu Xiu, watching this scene up close, suddenly noticed the Icefield Titan, whose body is gradually blurred, has another scene behind it. It's a world full of purple energy. There were twisted, weird, disordered, tentacle-like purple whiskers everywhere. Just take a look. Crazy abouts and value. Raw. On this side, the Icefield Titan, whose body has completely disappeared, has not given up attacking Chu Xiu. I saw him roaring and reaching out his hand. Try to catch Chu Xiu. But at the moment, when the giant palm fell, the huge body of the Icefield Titan suddenly disappeared. All that was left was that it jumped, and a strong wind blew the corners of Chu Xiu's clothes. Damn, why did this thing come back? Just a second after the Iceborne Titan disappeared, a one-eyed man suddenly appeared from the twisted air, while hurriedly replacing his blindfold. It's you. Chu Xiu recognized this person as the one-eyed man who had disappeared before. To prevent him from disappearing again. Without further ado. A direct flash. He teleported to the one-eyed man, grabbed his throat, and picked him up with one hand. Don't move. Don't use abilities, or I'll just cut your throat. Chu Xiu held the one-eyed man with one hand and said coldly. The one-eyed man just appeared. Before he could react to what happened, a terrible force grabbed his throat. As a muscular man with a height of 1.8 meters, the one-eyed strong man found that he had no strength to resist Chu Xiu's hand, like the hydraulic tongs of a machine. There is absolutely no way to break free. The one-eyed strong man wanted to speak, but found that he couldn't even speak. Certainly, Chu Xiu was not in a hurry to interrogate. Seeing that he successfully controlled the one-eyed man, he immediately started scanning. Name: Charles, S**X, male, talent, eye of falsehood LV3, left eye, open your left eye, you will enter the void space. During this period, you will not be hurt by any material space. Close the left eye, you can return to the material space. Note, the void space cannot be observed in the material space. The material space cannot be observed in the void space. The eye of reality? Chu Xiu was slightly taken aback. This was the first time he had seen such a special talent. It's actually a direct trip to another world that is different from the real world. You. Here Chu Xiu blurted out these words. There was shock in Charles' one-eyed eye. He didn't understand why the young man in front of him knew his abilities so well, since there is no space to observe the real world. Then, how did you know the Iceborne Titan was gone? Chu Xiu said, squeezed Charles' hand, and relaxed a little, but Lian Yuo is good, so that he can answer. How do you know my abilities? Charles, who got a chance to breathe, asked Chu Xiu back. I'm asking you now. Chu Xiu's tone turned cold. While increasing the force, a current is released. The electric current is precisely controlled to the extent that it can cause great pain, but is not fatal. Charles struggled with the electric shock. In the severe pain, he instinctively stretched out his hand and tried to change the position of the blindfold point Zizzy, but the current has become stronger. Village. I don't want to ask again, perhaps because of the battle with the Icefield Titan. Chu Xiu suppressed a trace of anger in his heart point, so the attitude towards Charles, extremely cold. As he spoke, the strength in his hands gradually increased, and Charles' throat had begun to rattle. Point, it looks like it will shatter. Do not. I said. Point, I said. Chapter 184 Warp. Terrible scene. Wouldn't it be better to cooperate earlier? Chu Xiu released his hand slightly. Charles, who got a chance to breathe, suddenly gasped like a drowning man. Don't. I said. When seeing Chu Xiu's bad eyes, Charles was startled. Couldn't even breathe. Regarding Chu Xiu's question just now, how did you observe that the Icefield Titan disappeared in the void space? Charles answered. Because void space is part of the warp. Although I cannot observe the real world, but I can see the warp changing. When I saw the Iceborne Titans appear in the warp, I knew the real world was safe. Point. When he said the word safety, Charles couldn't help but glance at Chu Xiu. Point. If an empty space can see the real world. Point. Charles wouldn't come back to reality so quickly anyway. Does the warp really exist? Chu Xiu was a little surprised. Point. Einstein's theory of relativity mentioned that the existence of the existing world belongs to the positive, anti-material world, and there must be another, anti-positive material world. Point. In the subspace, it is the space of positive matter that exists, and the layer of barrier between the space of antimatter, and in many sci-fi fantasy. Point. Warp space is also often used as a key medium for faster than light flight and space-time tunneling. Wait. Time tunnel. Chu Xiu suddenly had some enlightenment. You just said you saw Iceborne Titans in the warp? Tell me all you know. Chu Xiu stared at Charles and said in a serious tone. Second, don't know much. Charles hesitated. Seems to be worried about something. In the end, it was difficult to raise his hand and point to the purple crack on the lake in the distance. I only know that the warp is a stop that must be passed through to move across time and space. You can understand it as the transit station of the time-space tunnel. Move from point A to point B, and the process of this movement is carried out in the subspace. Charles hesitated for a moment and said, that is to say. After Chu Xiu listened, he glanced at the purple crack on the lake. Behind this crack, there is no monster world, but the warp. When looking at this crack, that strange sense of unease continued to pour in. Chu Xiu noticed the mimetic pollution and quickly looked away. But then, it turned out that Charles was still staring at the crack. There was even a hint of enthusiasm in his eyes. Why aren't you contaminated with memes? Chu Xiu continued to ask. Memes. Charles was taken aback for a moment, and then he reacted. No. Then how is pollution? This is a great oracle, a great god conveying knowledge to us. Charles said. Point. There was a morbid madness in his eyes, or the piety of madmen. Deb. Chu Xiu frowned and listened. What's the point of this? People are crazy. Can you ignore memes? Can this thing still change according to human thinking? Thinking of this, Chu Xiu suddenly realized one thing, that is, in addition to this Charles in front of him, there is another person who also showed immunity to mimetic pollution. That is Beizaro. As a normal human being, Beizaro stared at the screen for so long, but nothing was different at first. Chu Xiu thought that Beizaro was just not afraid. But now it seems that the reason is not so simple. Memes aside. Last question. Who sent you? What is the mission? Chu Xiu finished. Charles shook violently. It seems to touch the real secret. No, I can't say that. Charles shook his head resolutely, even though the lightning flashed from Chu Xiu's fingers. While shaking his head, Charles quietly fingered his brain. Something? Chu Xiu understood immediately. Magnetic field energy invaded Charles' brain. Sure enough, a mechanical device similar to a chip was found in his brain. There are 3 grams of high energy explosives on it, although only 3 grams, but also enough to fry a human brain into a paste. Okay, you can speak now. Chu Xiu thought about it. An electromagnetic pulse wave, or EMP, spreads out. Instantly burned the chip in Charles' brain. How can that be? Feeling that the chip was damaged, shock appeared in Charles' eyes. Our task is to put the reality anchoring device into the crack, release the Ice Titan in advance, and then use. Get it under control. But Charles was talking. His voice suddenly cut off. At the same time blushing. His hands and feet began to struggle unconsciously, as if they were attacked by something. Control? With what? Chu Xiu wanted to ask again, but Charles's face has started to swell. The eyeballs gradually squeezed out of the sockets. A look that is about to explode. Grass. System. Copy quickly. Ding. Successful copying. Get talent. Eye of Falsehood LV3. Chu Xiu found that something was wrong and decisively copied the ability of Charles, ready to find the truth by himself. The moment the copy is completed, Chu Xiu immediately threw Charles out. Boom. In the air, Charles' brain suddenly exploded. Only a headless corpse was left, which was thrown dozens of meters away. Made. Isn't the chip already destroyed? Chu Xiu was annoyed with a hint of doubt. But at the same time, the picture in Chu Xiu's left eye began to twist due to copying Charles' eye of reality. The Iceborne Titan that just disappeared. It gradually appeared in the left eye, but what he saw with his right eye was a messy zoo. There was no Iceborne Titan at all. What does this mean? When you open 2 eyes at the same time, you are in 2 worlds at the same time. Chu Xiu was slightly taken aback. But the next second he disappeared in an instant. The picture in front of you is black. Open your eyes again. Chu Xiu has come to a void space that is indescribable in words. Not up and down. Not even distance. Far away or not far. The body of the Icefield Titan stood in the midst of a strange purple energy. Because there is no distance, the picture in Chu Xiu's eyes looked very strange. The distance of the Icefield Titan seems to be infinite, but it seems to be within reach. Raw. At the same time, the Iceborne Titans also noticed Chu Xiu's arrival. A roar. Let countless eyes gather in the entire subspace. A creepy thing has happened. Countless figures bigger than the Iceborne Titans. Countless beings stronger than Iceborne Titans. Some of them, when Chu Xiu takes a look, it will feel like his brain has been hit by a giant hammer. And these figures, at this moment, turned to Chu Xiu. F***K. In just a split second, distorted countless weird images appeared in Chu Xiu's mind. Even if there is a LV4 mental shield. Even wearing the mental shielding device made by Beizaro. To no avail. Aware that he was being contaminated by a strong meme, Chu Xiu closed his left eye decisively. In an instant. All the images of the void space disappear. Open your right eye again. I have already returned to the zoo. The weird images in my brain also disappeared. F***K. Chu Xiu took a deep breath. The whole person seems to have not recovered. It's melted. I can't have this power breaking ability. After regaining his senses, Chu Xiu quickly manipulated the magnetic field and made a metal blindfold for himself. Cover your left eye like Charles just now. For a power breaker, blind losing one eye is obviously not worth it. so Chu Xiu intends to fuse it. But now the question is, the type of this power is unknown. If there is no second ability of the same type, ability fusion cannot be performed. System, what type does this eye of reality belong to? Can you fuse with my current power? Chu Xiu asked in his heart. Soon. The system responded rigidly. Space Department can be fused with primary flash. Chapter 185 Continuous upgrades. Strength skyrockets. Space system. Chu Xiu's eyes lit up. To be precise, his right eye lit up. Because the left eye is covered by a piece of metal blindfold. Then, what are you waiting for? Immediately melt. Chu Xiu was just about to fuse. Not far away, the purple crack across the lake suddenly opened slowly. Countless purple energies, the fangs and claws stretched out from it, like tentacles. On. Again. Chu Xiu hurriedly looked at the time, but found that the countdown on the watch had already ended. And that means the crack has started again. Roar. Accompanied by a roar, a variety of strange shape figures appeared in the cracks at the same time. The surrounding mimetic pollution also became more intense. C. Chu Xiu decisively gave up on fusion. A dozen consecutive flashes were performed. In just 2 or 3 seconds. He has crossed a distance of several kilometers. Catch up with Kara, who has already evacuated to a safe area. Leader, come with me before Kara could react. Chu Xiu was attracted to the sky by the magnetic field. Kara is a robot after all. Chu Xiu also doesn't have to worry about what damage the repulsive magnetic field will do to her body. Therefore, the output of the repulsive magnetic field is directly increased to the maximum. Rise up with Kara, stepping on the geomagnetic field, quickly flew into the distance. Boom. Just as the to left. A loud bang came from behind. The crack is completely open. Another group of new monsters emerged from the cracks. 10 minutes later, Chu Xiu and Carol landed in Yijiang Garden. Li Qiuai and the others were already waiting outside. Seeing Chu Xiu's safe return, the hearts of all the girls were suddenly filled with a huge boulder. But then they found the metal blindfold on Chu Xiu's left eye socket. What's wrong with your eyes? Yin Yi covered her mouth, and mist immediately appeared in Kazlan's big eyes. Chu Xiu. Li Qiuai was equally shocked. Obviously. They were all misunderstood. I thought that Chu Xiu had blind one eye during this operation. Go. It's okay. My eyes are fine. Chu Xiu waved his hand. I thought I have to quickly integrate this ability. Otherwise, he wears a metal blindfold all day long, like a special space pirate. By the way, what about Beizao? Chu Xiu looked around. Then not far away, I saw the figure of Beizao. Beizao also left the laboratory. But she didn't come around like the girls. Instead, he stood at the door of Villa number 9 and quietly watched this scene. I saw Beizao. Chu Xiu immediately manipulated the magnetic field and placed Kara on the ground. Kara, you go to Beizao. Let her see what's wrong with your data. When he was repairing Kara in the zoo, Chu Xiu discovered that Kara had touched the purple energy. It's not just that the backup data sent back is contaminated, even the data of the ontology has also been affected by unknown. But what exactly has changed? Only Beizao can do a detailed data comparison. Receive. Kara heard Chu Xiu's words, immediately walked towards Beizao, but his movements were a little stiff. Some even limped. Although Chu Xiu repaired her metal skeleton, she restored her hydraulic system and transmission system. But there are still some high precision instruments in Kara's body that have yet to be repaired. Just like a light sensing camera. The materials of these devices cannot be directly controlled by the magnetic field. So it wasn't fixed. Come with me. At the door of Villa number 9, Beizao saw that Chu Xiu did not come with Kara. I know in my heart that Chu Xiu must have other things, so without saying much, he turned around and took Kara into the laboratory. You guys go back too. I'll be alone for a while. Chu Xiu had a brief exchange with the girls. He left the community alone. Release the repulsive magnetic field. Fly in the dark for a while, and finally land on a deserted town. Because it is relatively close to Yijiang Garden. The zombies and beasts in the town have been cleaned up by Li Qiuai and the others. Chu Xiu randomly found a private house and landed. Then communicated the system in the bottom of my heart. Expand my properties. Name, Chu Xiu. System level. 3, 0 over 1 million. Strength. 327 agility. 169, plus 31. Copy the Eye of Reality. Physique. 531 left square bracket energy. 1596 plus 42 upgrade spiritual shield plus copy the Eye of Reality. Talent magnetic field control LV5 1 million. Raiden control LV5 1 million. Royal soil LV4 100,000. Advanced Julie LV3 10,000. Primary self-healing LV3 full. Primary flashing LV3 full. Flowers beginner haste LV2 1000. Primary toxin immunity LV2 1000. Spirit shield LV4 full. Eye of falsehood LV3 10,000. Use slot 10/20 experience value. 71 fusion points. 4 inches 0000 has become 390,000. Chu Xiu was a little surprised when he saw the EXP column point. I didn't expect the harvest tonight to be so big. System will protect the soil. Advanced giant power. Primary haste. Primary poison immunity. All are fully up. After being rich and powerful, Chu Xiu's words became stiff. Point also consider retaining experience point upgrading the system or upgrade key skills, but now, with so much experience in hand, Chu Xiu doesn't have to think so much point, and in Chu Xiu's view, in addition to the earth defense and higher level giant power, the upgrade experience of these two abilities may be slightly more point. The other two are primary abilities. How much experience can you use? With this idea in mind, Chu Xiu chose to upgrade all the abilities that could be upgraded point except for the Eye of Reality, that will be merged point. Ding. Consumes 1000 experience. Primary poison immunity is raised to LV3 full. Ding. Consumes 1000 experience. Beginner haste to LV3. Ding. Consumes 10,000 experience. Beginner haste to LV4 full. Since Chu Xiu's order was all full, therefore, the system has been continuously upgraded, and it will not stop until it reaches the limit of the talent. It's just over 10,000. Chu Xiu pouted point as expected. These two primary talents didn't use up much experience until they reached full capacity point, and the influx of energy brought about by the upgrade is not obvious. It is completely incomparable to Chu Xiu's own energy point, but then it's different point. Ding. Consumes 100,000 EXP. Raised Earth to LV5 full. In an instant point a huge amount of energy poured into the body point. Fortunately, Chu Xiu has experienced 2 LV5 talent upgrades and quickly adapted to this energy point, but just got used to it point. The beep sounded again. Ding. Consumes 10,000 experience. Advanced giant power is raised to LV4. Julie followed suit and increased his level point, and looks like LV4 is not the limit of advanced giant power. Mountain. Chapter 186. The comprehensive attributes are over 1,000. Humanoid behemoth. Really point. Just after Julie completed the LV4 upgrade point, the beep sounded again point. Ding. Consumes 100,000 experience. Advanced giant power is raised to LV5 full. In an instant point another huge energy poured into the body. Different from other abilities, giant power is a pure power talent point. The improvement it brings is more intuitive point. Chu Xiu, who has experienced many LV5 upgrades, thought he had adapted to this level of energy point, but this time point the energy change is no longer a spiritual dimension. It is the meat that carries the spirit. Terrible energy poured into the limbs like a tide. Chu Xiu only felt that every cell in his body was torn apart by this terrible energy, and then, under the maintenance of another force, it was reorganized and torn again. Repeats like this point. Final result point. It is Chu Xiu's physical function, which has begun to grow exponentially under thousands of trials and tribulations. The change this time is no longer a simple increase in muscle density point. It is the internal organs of Chu Xiu point. We have practiced together countless times. Outside the town point from the building where Chu Xiu was, there was an open space 200 or 300 meters away point to corpse dogs foraging point. He seemed to smell something, stopped suddenly, and turned his head to look in the direction of the town. Roar. After a brief observation, The two corpse dogs let out a roar and then moved in the direction opposite to the town. Run away without looking back at the same time. The night sky and the dark point, a single winged demon seemed to sense something and suddenly changed the flight pattern. Draw a big arc in the air, bypassed the town where Chu Xiu is located. Dong dong drum, and in the quiet and dark town, suddenly there was a dull beat. Or, it's a heartbeat that's amplified countless times. The source of the sound was Chu Xiu with his eyes closed. The closer you get to Chu Xiu, the smaller the drum-like heartbeat will become, and it will gradually become an audible. But the atmosphere around him became more oppressive. A suffocating, terrifying sense of oppression gradually appeared nearby. It was as if some beast was about to wake up at this time. Without the slightest sign, Chu Xiu suddenly woke up and opened his right eye. The body moved slightly involuntarily, but it's such a simple move. The building under Chu Xiu's feet seemed to be hit by a fully loaded train. Boom. The roof of the building collapsed. They smashed into the building together with Chu Xiu, who was standing on the roof. Boom. The free-falling Chu Xiu fell along with the concrete of the roof and smashed through the second floor on the first floor. After finally standing up, Chu Xiu instinctively supported the wall next to him. Boom. But it's a nudge. The entire wall collapsed. Is this wall made of paper? Chu Xiu stared blankly at his hand. The fallen wall, although not the load-bearing wall of the building, has no internal reinforcement. But it is also a solid masonry structure. How now? It's like paper paste, and it falls down when you touch it. No, it's not that the walls are fragile. Chu Xiu bent down and picked up a cement brick, held it in his hand, and squeezed it lightly. Caca, the cement bricks were crushed like biscuits. It turned into powder and scattered from Chu Xiu's fingertips. My strength is too great. Upgrading so many abilities at once. The improvement is too large to adapt to. Chu Xiu figured out why. Only cautiously walked out of the building. But when the door was opened, the door of the building was removed, along with the door frame. No, that's too outrageous, isn't it? Looking at the wooden door and door frame in his hand, Chu Xiu was stunned for a second. With shock, Chu Xiu hurriedly shouted in his heart, "System, expand. My current properties." The voice just fell. The familiar panel reappeared. However, the above values have undergone earth-shaking changes. Name, Chu Xiu. System level 3, 1 million. Strength 1068 plus 741 agility. 321 plus 150 to physical. 1042 plus 511 energy. 1703 plus 107 talent. Magnetic field control LV5, 1 million. Radiant control LV5, 1 million. Royal soil LV5, full. Advanced giant LV5, full. Primary self-healing LV3, full. Primary. Flashing LV3, full. Beginner haste LV3, full. Primary toxin immunity LV3, full. Spirit shield LV4, full. Eye of falsehood LV3, 10,000. Use slot 10/20. Experience value 140,610. Fusion points. Foreseeing the numbers on the panel, Chu Xiu was suddenly stunned. Read it several times. After making sure you read it right. This is the reaction point, well-known point. No matter what kind of status, no matter the quality or not point, as long as they are Chinese, when they are extremely shocked, those two words are always blurted out. F***K! Exclamation mark. Chu Xiu is no exception, except for the agility. The whole TM has exceeded 1000. Until now, Chu Xiu was still a little unbelievable. 3-dimensional breaking 1000. What concept, strength, physique, and energy have all reached more than 100 times that of ordinary people. You know, in a certain series of hero movies before the end, there is a super soldier who beats everyone at. Also 4.1 is the one called Captain. His comprehensive attributes are only 6 to 7 times that of ordinary people. And Chu Xiu. Except for agility, other attributes have reached more than 100 times that of ordinary people. If you only talk about mental power, it is even more exaggerated. At least it is more than 1000 times that of ordinary people, because the energy attribute of ordinary people is 0, and In Chu Xiu's 4-dimensional attributes, even the agility, that seems to be retracting point. In fact, it has reached more than 30 times that of ordinary people. The same is a terrible number. Wait, have I forgotten something? While shocked, Chu Xiu suddenly touched the metal blindfold on his face. Slightly stunned. If I remember correctly, I ran out at night, as if it wasn't to upgrade, right? Chapter 187 Advanced Teleportation. The subspace flickers come out at night. It seems to be for fusion power, right? Thinking of this, Chu Xiu temporarily turned his attention away from the shock of the skyrocketing attributes. Glancing at the property list, at present, there are as many as 10 talents copied, and now, in addition to lightning control and magnetic field control, as well as the Eye of Reality, the other 7 abilities have all been upgraded to full level. Certainly. It's not a good thing to easily upgrade to full level, because this means that the potential of this ability is here, and it cannot continue to improve. Wait, Eye of Reality has more potential than Flicker. Just then, Chu Xiu noticed a key piece of information. The same as LV3 level. Primary flashing has indicated full level, but there is still room for improvement. So this means that the growth potential of the Eye of Reality is actually higher than that of primary flicker. But the problem is, Chu Xiu really doesn't want to run around wearing a metal blindfold all day long. Like a special space pirate. The pirate image in a space movie wears a metal blindfold, except for the shape of, which makes Chu Xiu unacceptable. There is another very important reason why Chu Xiu wants to melt the Eye of Reality. That was the unpleasant trip to the warp not too long ago. Not to mention Chu Xiu's quick glance, those twisted and weird powerful beings I saw just in the subspace, the mimetic pollution, that is so powerful that even the mental shield will fail. It made Chu Xiu, whose strength has skyrocketed now, still have some lingering fears in retrospect. But at the same time, the warp is closely related to the space-time crack. It's bad. The key to unlocking the mystery of the apocalypse is hidden in the warp. It's hard to find a way to explore the subspace. Just melted away. It seems a little pity. It would be great if we could eliminate the drawbacks of the Eye of Falsehood and be able to freely enter the warp. Chu Xiu couldn't help thinking. Finally, after some deliberation, Chu Xiu made a decision. System. Fusion of virtual and realize. Enhance primary flicker. Explore the subspace. Sounds like a very ambitious and intense goal. But when you calm down and think about it, you will find that this goal is a bit too far away. With Chu Xiu's current strength, it was very reluctant to even say a word about walking sideways at Blue Star. Don't say far in the Black Forest of Yunex City next door. There is a suspected S-rank monster in it. Blue Star is still like this. Not to mention the intersection of the entire material world and the antimatter world. Compared to Blue Star, the danger level of the war, it can be said to be infinitely high. Instead of carrying a timed bomb on your body. Wearing a blindfold every day, afraid of not paying attention, he opened his left eye and entered the perilous warp. Better yet, directly melt this exploding order to improve the existing teleportation ability. After all, improving combat power is a real deal. Others are false. Ding. Fusion begins. Eye of Reality LV3 disappears. Get 14 fusion points, accompanied by a beep. The Eye of Reality on the talent list immediately disappears. Then 4 fusion points obtained when the system detects that Chu Xiu killed Dr. Cecil before. Asked to 4 additional fusion points are detected. Do you want to add them to this fusion? Yes. Chu Xiu did not hesitate. Points are for use. A total of 18 fusion points. Start fusion. Primary flicker LV3, subspace flicker LV3, accompanied by a beep. The primary blink on the talent panel also disappeared. In its place is a new talent called Warp Blink. Warp Flicker. Chu Xiu was slightly taken aback and quickly opened the introduction of this new talent. Subspace flickering. Special flicker that incorporates the power of the warp. This ability can be used in 2 ways, regular flash and subspace flash. Regular flash, same as primary flash, but wider range and shorter cooldown, flickering in the subspace Enter the subspace, use the subspace as a transfer station, and perform ultra-long distance teleportation, which can transmit other life forms. Note, the subspace is extremely dangerous. Please take precautions. Before entering point, read the introduction to the new talent. After Chu Xiu absorbed the key information point immediately, he took off the metal blindfold covering his left eye. Really nothing out of the ordinary happened. It turns out that the supernatural fusion is a fusion of the characteristics of the two abilities? Chu Xiu suddenly realized previously, when Chu Xiu first tried the fusion of supernatural powers, Chu Xiu fused giant strength and strength enhancement point, but both are strength talents. The characteristics of both sides are also enhanced strength point. This led Chu Xiu to mistakenly believe that power fusion is simply destroying one power to enhance other powers. It turned out that Chu Xiu was clearly mistaken. Power fusion is just like its name. The point is fusion. After figuring this out, Chu Xiu couldn't help laughing. Really happy smile, because all the problems in the past have now been solved. Now, whether to enter the warp or not depends entirely on Chu Xiu's personal thoughts. That is to say, Chu Xiu now retains both the ability to enter the warp point and don't worry about opening your eyes. You will passively enter the subspace, encounter unexpected situations. All previous concerns are now perfectly resolved. Not only that, the upgraded Flash also gained new features: ultra long distance teleportation, and you can also send people with you. As for the teleportation process, Chu Xiu also thought of a solution to enter the crisis-ridden warp. And the method is very simple. Go back and tell Beizio about this. That's right. Chu Xiu's solution. It is to throw the problem to Beizio and let her solve the protection problem of entering the subspace point with the completion of the power fusion. Chu Xiu didn't linger any longer and started to flicker in the direction of Yijiang Garden. Swish, in the dark. Chu Xiu's figure disappeared instantly. There was still a strange green smoke left in place then. Chu Xiu appeared again, more than 200 meters away. More than 200 meters is not the limit, because I was afraid of the situation like just now that I could not control my power. Chu Xiu didn't flicker too far at first. Use 2 or 3 times until you get used to the new flicker ability. Chu Xiu has just started testing the current maximum flickering distance: 281 meters! 2 meters! 301 asterisk! Try again and again. In the end, Chu Xiu measured the limit flickering distance. It reached 325 meters. Before, the limit distance of flashing was only more than 60 meters. Now it has more than 5 times directly, and the blinking interval is also shorter. If you don't skimp on mental power, Chu Xiu can complete 6-7 flashes in 1 second. Blinks 6-7 per second. More than 300 meters each time. That's more than 2000 meters per second. Wait, isn't that 6 times the speed of sound? Chapter 188. No, these 2 days can't be done. Continuous blinking at nearly 6 times the speed of sound. Chu Xiu returned to Yijiang Garden in just a few seconds. With his current mental power, he doesn't have to be too stingy, and it's perfectly fine to flash 180 times in a row. Back to the neighborhood. Chu Xiu carefully opened the villa door, although very careful. Click, but the pure copper door knob was still screwed off. Chu Xiu, is that you? Li Qiuyu and Yunyi still haven't rested yet. Been waiting in the living room for Chu Xiu to come back. Here movement. The 2 girls came over immediately. Chu Xiu, are you okay? Seeing that Chu Xiu came back, Li Qiuyu quickly asked. Just after a big battle, Chu Xiu returned to the villa and left in a hurry. Before he stayed long this move, the 2 girls couldn't help but feel worried. Hey, are your eyes better? At this time, Yunyi noticed that the metal blindfold on Chu Xiu's face was gone. Chu Xiu rolled his eyes. When did the eyes of labor and capital go bad? Fine. The carefree Yunyi didn't think much about it and immediately forgot about the blindfold. By the way, I have already discussed with Qiuyu tonight. As Yunyi spoke, she leaned into Chu Xiu's ear and said something as delicate as a mosquito. Finished speaking. Even Yunyi blushed. Li Qiuyu, who was on the side, lowered her head and stared at the floor as if she wanted to find a hole to drill. Cough cough. Chu Xiu coughed lightly. I wonder, how dare you two? After a few friendly discussions, the two girls gradually let go. Especially what Yi said just now. Even the self-proclaimed perverted Chu Xiu felt a little perverted. Well, Chu Xiu is ready to readily agree. Suddenly, he glanced at the doorknob that had been screwed off in his hand and then thought of something. Oh no, let me get used to it for 2 days. Chu Xiu shook his head helplessly. Then he gave the reason for I don't want to let you two have trouble. What can happen to this? The two girls were confused. Yunyi even said that she and Qiu went out to collect supplies last time and came back with a big box of umbrellas. Absolutely nothing will happen. You don't have to worry about it. It won't work for 2 days anyway. Chu Xiu ignored the second daughter's doubts. Mind a move. The deformed door handle in his hand flew back to the door automatically and was connected with the door lock. Do it all. Chu Xiu went upstairs alone. Leaving behind Li Qiuai and Yunyi. They stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes until the figure of Chu Xiu disappeared on the stairs. The two girls came back to their senses. Look at each other. They all got the same conjecture from each other's eyes. You said, could there be someone else? Yi looked at Li Qiuai and asked, probably not. Li Qiuai wanted to explain 2 sentences for Chu Xiu. But Chu Xiu's performance just now was too strange. In the past, in the face of their appointment, Chu Xiu never refused. Could it be Chen Miaoyu? No, she is an ordinary person and can't be Chu Xiu. What if you add the new Zaojin? That doesn't work either. The two of us together, we only have the share of begging for mercy. How could the two of them be able to deal with Chu Xiu? It makes sense. Then, Bei Zio, it's even more impossible. Bei Zio has no emotions. How can the two women discussed for a long time but did not discuss a result? At last. Can only go back to rest with doubts. At the same time. Chu Xiu, who just went upstairs, didn't really go to rest. Instead, he came to the open air balcony on the roof alone. The body hangs a few centimeters in the air. Try to get used to the terrible power of this sudden surge. The improvement this time is a little too exaggerated. Chu Xiu clenched his fists. Feel the surging power in your body, as if he could blow up the planet under his feet with one punch. Of course, this is an illusion. But this is also enough to prove how exaggerated this power increases. Exaggerated to everything else around. Chu Xiu became like paper, not paying attention. It may cause damage to the surroundings. And not just power, but speed. Chu Xiu finished. Try a punch. But the naked eye can't see the trajectory of this punch at all. Boom. Only an ear-piercing roar could be heard. In that moment, Chu Xiu could clearly feel his fist blocked by the air, as if pushing the air forward. But the slightest obstacle was quickly broken through. Boom boom boom. The air pushed away by the fist exploded in layers in front of him. A small hurricane visible to the naked eye. F***K. Chu Xiu himself was taken aback by the power of this punch. It turned out that before he knew it, his melee compatibility had also reached such an exaggerated level. Without any exaggeration. The current Chu Xiu, even if he abandons all manipulation abilities, does not need magnetic fields and does not need lightning. Only use pure melee combat. Definitely the top awakener. The last thing is the physique. After simply feeling the power and speed, Chu Xiu focused his attention on the least noticeable one among the 4-dimensional attributes. Physique. Like other properties, physical fitness is also a comprehensive attribute. At the same time, it includes a series of performances such as physical fitness, recovery speed, defense power, and so on. 100 times the physique of an ordinary person. Defending firearms should be trivial, right? With a thought, Chu Xiu manipulated the magnetic field and drew a pistol from the cabinet on the first floor. This gun is usually used by Chen Miaoyu. The bullet is the common 9mm. Catching the flying pistol, Chu Xiu placed the palm of his other hand and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Boom. After a gunshot, Lianuo is good. The copper bullet turned into a copper cake in Chu Xiu's palm and then slid down. But Chu Xiu's palm was not damaged in the slightest. Not even a red mark. The pistol is still too weak, so let's go straight to the electromagnetic railgun. Since it was a test, Chu Xiu decided to do it in one step. Done. A small magnetic field track was erected directly in the air, then a steel ball with a diameter of 1 centimeter was filled in. In an instant. The steel ball was accelerated to several times the speed of sound. Boom. After a loud bang, the village. A blood hole was opened in Chu Xiu's palm. Chu Xiu glanced at his palm expressionlessly. Sure enough, as long as you are still carbon-based creatures, there are always thermal weapons that can hurt you. Chu Xiu let out a sigh. Then, primary self-healing LV3 activates the blood hole on the palm, began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon it will be back to normal. Chapter 189 Liquid Metal Battlesuit. Although it failed to stop the attack of the electromagnetic railgun in the end. But this also gave Chu Xiu a deeper understanding of his own defense, except for some special equipment, conventional weapons, I should be immune. 5 With this conclusion, Chu Xiu returned to the house contentedly. Certainly. In order to avoid damage to the villa during the operation, Chu Xiu maintained a semi-suspended state with his feet not touching the ground, and even the action of opening the door was controlled by a magnetic field. The next day. The sky just dawned. Chu Xiu found Beizao and wanted to get an nano suit like Yin Yi. In order to adapt to the strength and speed of their own skyrocketing as soon as possible, Chu Xiu decided to fight to speed up the adaptation. Of course, Chu Xiu didn't need that little improvement in the suit. Asking for a battle uniform is simply to block the dirt, so that the whole body is not covered in blood due to melee combat. If only for that reason, then you can try this here. Chu Xiu's reasons. Beizao found a small box in her laboratory, liquid metal suit, but it is only a prototype, and it has no function at present. Beizao opened the box. Inside is a silver battle suit that resembles a jacket due to the properties of liquid metal. This suit is not as muscular and powerful as the nano suit. Just like normal clothing. The texture looks very soft. You can adjust the color yourself. Currently, only jacket mode and full body mode are set. However, it should not be difficult for you to change the form of liquid metal. Beizao finished. He ignored Chu Xiu, turned around and walked to the workbench to continue dismantling Kara. Kara at this time lying on the workbench. All the liquid metal on the body fell off, leaving only the slender metal skeleton. And now, Beizao was dismantling her skeleton little by little. Carefully inspect the parts for damage. Drip check halfway through. A nearby instrument rang. Hearing the movement, Beizao hurriedly put down the parts in his hand, walked to the instrument again, and started to process a bunch of complicated data. This situation is not unique. There are too many things to deal with. In order to speed up the progress, Beizao often works on 2 or 3 tasks at the same time. But with her brain, she also supports this kind of multitasking. The only problem is that the body can't handle it. If you don't have a life detection device on your wrist, you can always remind Beizao to drink water, eat, and rest. Chu Xiu even worried that she would wear herself to death one day. Okay, then you are busy. Seeing Beizao so busy, Chu Xiu paused, but in the end he didn't say anything about the warp space. Subsequently, Chu Xiu took out the liquid metal suit from the box. At the same time, I glanced at the box. The instructions that Beizao left behind. After figuring out how to use it, Chu Xiu put this jacket on his body. On the left wrist of the jacket, there is a watch-like device that is directly inlaid on the clothes. Drip tap the device once. The device's screen lights up. Chu Xiu finds the color change page and clicks it again. The jacket, no, should be said to be a liquid metal battlesuit, and the surface immediately rolled over in an instant. The color changed from silver to black. Chu Xiu then tried the full body mode of the battlesuit. For a moment. Only the jacket of the upper body began to spread downward, and the liquid metal of the neck also began to climb upward. The result is a fully wrapped black suit. The styling is a bit like the nanosuit. Just not so exaggerated. The muscles that appear in the battlesuit are also Chu Xiu's own muscles. 8-pack abs, very well proportioned. Look at it as a whole. It's a bit like the spider suit of a hero who hangs spider silk all day in a certain series of hero movies, but the color is pure black, and there is no spider-shaped pattern on the surface point. Definitely not ugly, but it can't be said to be pretty. But the shape is a bit monotonous. Done. Chu Xiu switched back to jacket mode and left the community alone. Go straight to the city where there are many zombies. In order to quickly adapt to the strength of the GDEB, Chu Xiu does not plan to use any control type abilities today. Prepare for a pure melee fight. Dozens of flashes in a row. After using about 1/4 of the mental power, Chu Xiu successfully completed the great feat of reaching the urban area of H City from Yijiang Garden in a matter of seconds, although it is only on the outskirts of the city. But this is also enough to prove how exaggerated Chu Xiu's current displacement ability is. Just those few seconds. Every time Chu Xiu completes a flash, he starts the next flash without even seeing the surrounding environment. Fortunately, Chu Xiu lived in H City for several years. I'm familiar with the streets and alleys here. Otherwise, with this exaggerated flickering frequency, if you are not careful, you may be stuck in the wall of a building. If there is an achievement system in life, then I can definitely get an achievement called Journey to Death. Just now, recalling his crazy actions just now, Chu Xiu couldn't help laughing at himself. At the same time, the zombies on the streets of the city also noticed Chu Xiu, an unsuspecting guest. Raw. Hoo ho ho. The raw set off a chain reaction. Like a drop of water dripping into a boiling oil pan. The roar of the zombies came one after another in the sky. Some circling flying beasts also noticed Chu Xiu below. They have been hungry for days. In the city at this time, there is hardly a living person to be found. Chu Xiu tried to explore with magnetic field induction, but only found the magnetic field of zombies and beasts. Within a radius of several kilometers there is no one alive, even in those buildings that seem to have closed doors. Some are just corpses that have been hanged or have their wrists cut. Most of them have run out of food reserves. I don't dare to go out for a chance to survive. In the end, only in despair, I choose to cut myself off. The ordinary survivors should be outside the city now. This scene is actually kind of ironic. The modern civilization, once proud of mankind, has now been occupied by monsters and has become a real purgatory on Earth. And humans themselves, then they were driven to the remote suburbs and lived like wild animals. And Chu Xiu knew this situation will continue to get worse as more and more monsters pour into Blue Star. The living space of human beings will become smaller and smaller until ushered in demise. Think back to all of this. Chu Xiu also fell silent, hoo ho ho, until the zombies that came in interrupted his memory with a roar. Why do you think so much? You still have plenty of time. 9. The road has to be taken one step at a time. Chu Xiu shook his head, and his eyes fell on the zombies that came in front of him. After switching the suit to full body mode, Chu Xiu moved. This movement, far exceeding the speed of more than 30 times of ordinary people, completely turned it into a black shadow. Ordinary people can't even see a shadow. And in the eyes of Chu Xiu, the whole world seemed to slow down. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, The Ultimate Enjoyment. Hearty Battle. Raw. In the eyes of Chu Xiu at this time, zombies open their mouths, as if in slow motion. Even roars. It's like a little bit is squeezed out of my throat. So, the world in the eyes of the haste is like this. From copying primary haste to now, this is the first time Chu Xiu has used this ability in a real sense. This feeling is novel. It's as if the whole world has been pressed slow down, and only you are at normal speed. With this distinction, zombies cannot attack Chu Xiu at all. Or, they can't even observe where Chu Xiu is now. And Chu Xiu punched lightly. Boom. The zombie in front of him seemed to have been hit by a locomotive. Broken. In an instant, the blasted flesh, driven by the shockwave visible to the naked eye, splashed backwards. Especially broken bones, more like a bullet. The 4 or 5 zombies behind him were beaten to pieces. This. Chu Xiu was slightly taken aback. Because he didn't feel like hitting an object at all. With his present strength, Punching through a steel plate is similar to punching through a piece of A4 paper, and zombies even worse than paper with this punch. Chu Xiu didn't even feel any feedback. Point like a fist to the air. Then it hit the air. A bubble blown by a child. Point that's right. It's the kind of bubbles you blow with soapy water. No. It doesn't make sense to fight ordinary zombies. Chu Xiu shook his head. The figure quickly shuttled through the group of corpses, and with 3 or 2 punches, all the nearly 100 zombies that were attacked were killed. Among them, the zombies were directly hit by the fist. Without exception. It all exploded to crumbs. The splattered flesh and bone residue stained the entire block red. Point bloody sky. You kill 71 ordinary zombies and gain experience 71. You killed the E-level mutation. Stop it. Chu Xiu interrupted the system's broadcast. These 3 melons and 2 dates are on the alert. And finally give me a statistic. Point done. Chu Xiu flicked lightly. Point the blood and minced meat on his hands were immediately thrown off. Point have to say Point Beziro's consideration was very thoughtful. Point like Yin Yi is nanosuit. The liquid metal suit has been specially treated to prevent it from getting wet. Point or other. Point without blood. Point just like lotus leaves, blood stains do not stick to the surface but slide down. Hey. Gap. Shake off Chu Xiu with blood on his hands. Just ready to head to the heart of the city. A familiar roar came from overhead. Old friend. Chu Xiu looked up. It was found that several winged demons were hovering above, as if they were looking for opportunities to attack. Under normal circumstances, the winged demon would not be so cautious. Once a living person is found, they will attack immediately. Point but this time, as beasts, they smelled a dangerous aura from Chu Xiu. Point the instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages makes them afraid to act rashly. Huh. Since you don't come down, then I have to go up. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, just as he was about to release the repulsive magnetic field and lift off, he reacted. No, it's agreed that I will only use my own strength today. Chu Xiu recovered. Point bend your knees slightly, then jump up. Point boom. The floor under my feet exploded instantly, torn apart, and Chu Xiu, like an unloaded cannonball, charged towards the sky. Point this leap is a height of 40 or 50 meters, close to 15 floors. You must know that this liquid metal suit does not have the auxiliary jumping function added by Beziro. Point can jump so high. It was entirely due to Chu Xiu's own terrifying power. Hey. Gap. Chu Xiu jumped up and seemed to frighten the winged demons. After a roar, these strange humanoid birds with bat wings began to run away. Point, but it's too late. Chu Xiu, who jumped into the sky, he grabbed the ankle of one of the winged demons, or it was the clawist. Hey. Gap. The captured winged demon hurriedly flapped its wings at the same time. With the other sharp claw, he frantically scratched Chu Xiu's arm. Point time winged demon's sharp claws, even liquid metal can break open. Point, but at the moment of touching Chu Xiu's skin, sparks appeared, not to mention hurting Chu Xiu. Point not even a white mark was left. Come down for me, 4 flowers. Chu Xiu pulled down, and the terrifying force directly pulled the winged demon down. Point, because of the moment of being pulled, the winged demon was still flapping its wings, causing its wings to bend backwards directly under the air resistance. Point click. Point the bones, where the wings are connected to the body, are directly broken, pierced from the scapular position. Saiga the winged demon let out a miserable howl. Point, but Chu Xiu pulled it down and used it as a springboard. In midair, Chu Xiu stepped hard. Point the moment he settled down, Chu Xiu could clearly feel the resistance of the air, just like when punching. This foot also hit the sound barrier. Boom. In a loud bang, the winged demon under Chu Xiu's feet instantly exploded into a cloud of red blood. Point not even a slightly larger corpse fragment could be found, and Chu Xiu. Point with this reaction force, it rushes towards the other winged demons like sharp arrows. Point boom. Boom. There were several loud noises in the air. Point for a short while, a few winged demons died without a whole corpse. Point, after killing all the winged demons, Chu Xiu fell straight down without slowing down. Point boom. The moment it fell. Point the ground trembled, and the sturdy asphalt road was smashed into a cobweb like crack. Point after landing, Chu Xiu did not make any stay. Point run straight towards the heart of the city. Point, while running at full speed. Point the wind whistles in my ears. In Chu Xiu's eyes, the things in the 2 rows of the street turned into a blurry after image. Point it is again a very different experience of flickering or diamagnetic flight. Point hearty, cool, Chu Xiu ran halfway at full speed, then jumped up. Boom. In an instant, a big hole exploded under my feet. And Chu Xiu, in this kind of accelerated run-up jump, directly flied into the air, with the wind whistling in the ears. Chu Xiu's figure jumped to a height of 70 or 80 meters, and draw an arc more than 300 meters long in the air. A whole street jumped over at Chu Xiu's feet, raw, and not far from Chu Xiu's landing spot, an A-level mutant zombie tyrant. It seemed to hear a whistling sound of breaking through the air. Turning to look at Chu Xiu's side of the mountain. Chapter 191 The skill of this punch for 20 years. Raw. After a brief moment of stunned, the tyrant immediately roared and rushed towards Chu Xiu's landing spot. At the same time, Chu Xiu in midair also noticed the tyrant at the location. Good. Seeing the tyrant, Chu Xiu not only did not change his location, instead, he slammed into it. At first glance, like prey delivered to your door. The tyrant was 4 meters tall, his muscles were built like a rock, and his weight was measured in tons. Then an extremely discordant scene happened. Chu Xiu, who is 1.9 meters tall, rammed straight into the tyrant, who was more than twice his size. This image, like a newborn baby in the boxing ring, went straight to Dwayne Johnson. Then an even worse scene has happened. Raw, as a zombie, the tyrant's poor IQ of obviously does not think that a weak human can pose any threat to himself. Then facing Chu Xiu, who came straight at him, the tyrant chose to open his arms, trying to catch the delicious food that was brought to his mouth and feast on it. But the next second, boom, accompanied by a drum-like roar, with the impact speed of the jump, Chu Xiu did not dodge or evade, and hit the tyrant with precision. The tyrant's open arms haven't had time to catch Chu Xiu yet. Its burly body is like being hit by a speeding locomotive. Fly straight out, destroy all the cars behind you. Boom. It was not until he hit an abandoned bus on the side of the road and smashed it into the middle. The tyrant stopped backing. Raw. The tyrant apparently still doesn't understand what's going on. As soon as he got up, he saw a dark figure rushing towards him. Boom. Another drum-like roar. The tyrant's right waist seemed to be hit by a battering ram. Terrible power spreads from the waist to the whole body. In the eyes of Chu Xiu, who is a speeder, he could clearly see that the muscles on the tyrant's body swayed like water waves under the bombardment of this impact. The tyrant was knocked flying again. The body is more than a meter in the air. Before falling, Chu Xiu jumped. The right leg is knee-kicked. It slammed into the spine of the tyrant's lower back. Boom. Another roar like a drum. At the same time, it is accompanied by the crisp sound of bone dislocation. After Chu Xiu had done all this, before he could fall, his right hand grabbed the tyrant's arm. Turn your body around in a circle. In a posture similar to an over-the-shoulder fall, he threw the 1-ton tyrant like a sandbag. It crashed into a nearby office building. Boom. The tyrant who was thrown out directly smashed through the outer wall of the building. Then there were several loud noises in the building. As expected of an A-level zombie, it really took a beating. Chu Xiu recalled. The first time I met a tyrant. It also took 2 electromagnetic railguns to kill it. And now. Physical strength alone is enough to crush the tyrant. I don't know if I can beat the silver-backed tyrant at that time. Chu Xiu couldn't help but think of the S-class zombie he met in the corpse tide. The silver-backed tyrant. Is remembering. Raw. In the office building ahead, there was a roar of a tyrant. The voice was full of anger. Raw. Accompanied by a roar inside the building. The burly body of the tyrant rushed towards Chu Xiu. You must hold on. Before the tyrant rushed out of the building, Chu Xiu turned into a black shadow, rushed into the building, and directly collided with the tyrant. Boom. Another drum-like roar. This sound of flesh and blood colliding is completely different from the sound of steel colliding, more wild, even more brutal, like 2 beasts fighting each other. This kind of pure power competition has been commonplace as early as the dinosaur era. On impact, the 2 figures flew out one after the other. Chu Xiu suffered weight loss. The whole figure flew out of the building like a cannonball. He hit a tree on the green belt by the middle and hit several abandoned cars one after another, but he wasn't actually hurt in any way. The reason why it was hit and flew, it's purely a loss of weight. Next second, Chu Xiu stood up unharmed. Point had turned into a shadow again and rushed into the office building point and inside the building point. Although the tyrant was not hit and flew very far, but Momo is too miserable. Point the burly rib cage was dented by the impact and several ribs were broken. One of the ribs pierced through the rock-like muscle and protruded from the armpit. Raw. The tyrant got up with difficulty. Point the next second, a black shadow rushed over, grab its head. Point pushing its 1-ton body. It rampaged through the office building. Boom. 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 The partition walls in the building collapsed one after another. Smoke and dust filled the air. Chu Xiu was like a madman, enjoying the most primitive violent experience. He grabbed the tyrant's head with one hand. Point but actually, compared to the tyrant's head, his hands are extra petite, like a baby's hand holding a basketball. Point it looks very inconsistent. Point but the tyrant could not break free, no matter what. Point after knocking down several walls, Chu Xiu's momentum finally stopped. The current environment should be the office location of an internet company. There are desks and computers all around. Raw. The dazed tyrant who was hit instinctively threw a punch at Chu Xiu. But Chu Xiu dodged the punch with a dodge. Point at the same time, he went around to the side of the tyrant and hit the tyrant's waist and kidneys with several punches in a row. Point the power of these punches is slightly smaller. Small here. It just means that the tyrant was not thrown into the air. Bang bang bang. In the raw, the tyrant was beaten up and down again and again. Soon, the right waist of the tyrant was hammered into a bloody mess. 4.1 The original rock-like muscles were shattered by Chu Xiu's punch after punch. Raw. The tyrant roared and turned around. Point but Chu Xiu's figure has long disappeared to the right. Slow. Too slow. In the eyes of Chu Xiu, who is haste, even a tyrant, the action is also very slow. Before the tyrant could turn around, he circled to the other side and threw out another punch. Chu Xiu's fighting skills, although not as good as those who are proficient in fighting. Point but after all, it has also been honed for several years in the Doomsday. It is by no means that ordinary people can compare. Point bang bang bang. In the attack mode of Chu Xiu's deliberate practice. Point the drum-like sound gradually took on a rhythm. Point it's like a blood-swelling drum of war. It's just that behind the sound of the drums, the tyrant's incomparably angry but helpless roar. Chapter 192. Team Zhang. Is this a trivial matter now? Bang bang bang. In the office building, the rhythmic drumming was constantly heard. Point as if there was a rock gig going on. Point but inside the building. Point but there is only a 4-meter high mutant zombie. Point being used as a sandbag by a human who looked incomparably weak. He was subjected to violent punches. Chu Xiu flickered and moved at the same time. Point and at an unimaginable speed. He vented his anger towards the tyrant. Point and the tyrant, but even the corners of Chu Xiu's clothes could not be touched. Of course, Chu Xiu, who was wearing a liquid metal suit, didn't have a clothing corner to touch it. Point bang bang bang. In such a fight, Chu Xiu could clearly feel his control over his power becoming more and more precise. Point from the very beginning, it is difficult to control the strength, and after getting familiar with it, I can accurately control the power of each punch. Sure enough, it is still quick to adapt to the battle. Chu Xiu was satisfied with the outcome of this battle. But as a tyrant of sandbags, it's getting more and more miserable. The burly body was beaten to a bloody mess, and the muscles that could resist bullets were shattered by a punch. PFFT. In the end, under Chu Xiu another burst of liver fist. Point the right waist of the tyrant was directly pierced. Blast. A huge blood hole appeared in the tyrant's waist. Point all flesh and organs were turned into blood mud and sprinkled on a wall behind. Raw. At this point, the tyrant finally lost the ability to act. The body fell forward and knelt down heavily. Point even a tired zombie couldn't withstand Chu Xiu's violent beating. Point almost all the muscles in the tyrant's body were broken up. Unable to contract properly, also lost the ability to act. Is this not going to work? Chu Xiu frowned slightly and shook off the blood on his hand. The blood belonged to a tyrant. This fight is cool though. Point but it didn't make Chu Xiu happy. Point because from the beginning to the end, the tyrant was beaten unilaterally and did not pose any threat to Chu Xiu at all. Well, if only the silver-backed tyrant were here. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he walked to a bearing column next to him. One punch knocked out the concrete on the pillar. An I-beam was extracted from it. Without the use of magnetic fields, Chu Xiu bent the eye-shaped rods with brute force. Then put it on the neck of the tyrant. Next, grab both ends of the bent I-beam and twist it hard. It's different from the usual sharpness. This kind of killing is extremely barbaric. In metal twist, the tyrant's thick neck was directly cut off, leaving only one cervical vertebra, connecting the head and the body. But despite this, the tyrant did not die. As expected of a zombie, this is not dead. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he punched the tyrant's cervical spine. Boom. You killed the A-level mutant zombie tyrant. Gain experience plus 1000. Accompanied by a system beep. Chu Xiu flicked the scraps of bone in his hands and left the office building as if nothing had happened. Before leaving. Still on a desk. When I saw an almost brand new Huami phone, I put it in my pocket. Don't ask why there are pockets. There are still clothes inside the battlesuit. Do it all. Chu Xiu returned to the street, and seeing that it was still early, he continued to look for the next sandbag object. While Chu Xiu was persecuting the zombies in the city. The other side. Jishin Arsenal. A number of production lines are in full swing. More than 500 survivors brought back by Chu Xiu from Wux City. After simple training by old employees already have the ability to participate in production. What is interesting? The migrant worker with the unactivated talent of Iron Stomach discovered by Chu Xiu before Wang Erniu. Although the cultural level is not high, but its simple character and excellent mobilization ability. Let him be favored by Zhang Haoping as a deputy, assist him in managing the arsenal. Team Zhang, the output of the 3 newly opened mechanical spider production lines has reached the standard. The new employees are more positive at work. There is no slack. Wang Erniu was holding a piece of paper, frowning and reporting for this more official way of speaking. Wang Erniu finds it difficult to adapt. According to his words, it should be, these people are all good guys. TM can do better than cattle. Good job, Erniu. Zhang Haoping patted Wang Erniu on the shoulder and encouraged, thank you team Zhang. Wang Erniu didn't find it strange. Isn't it normal for a veteran in his 70s to speak to himself in this tone? But Wang Erniu doesn't know. The Zhang Haoping in front of him looks like he is in his 70s. But the actual age is similar to him, only 40 or years old. Team leader. At this time, a soldier 50 came. It was Zhang Haoping, one of the original 8 soldiers currently in charge of managing food storage and food distribution. Corpse tied in a battle. The soldier had one leg amputated, but now it has been fitted with a mechanical leg designed by Beizio. Similarly, Zhang Haoping's arm was also replaced with a robotic arm. What's the matter? Xiaogu, the food is not enough again. Seeing the soldier coming over, Zhang Haoping immediately guessed the reason. Really? The soldier named Xiaogu nodded. There are too many people. Team Zhang, the food that used to be enough for more than 10 days is now available for up to 2 days, unless we reduced our rations from 2 a day to 1 a day. That should last 2 more days. Xiaogu walked over and said, no, 2 meals a day is already low. A lot of these people do manual work, and no matter how little, they won't be able to stand it. Zhang Haoping decisively rejected Xiaogu's proposal, and then asked, hasn't the Hushan base delivered food recently? Because the Jishin arsenal is located in Dashan. There is no material around to collect. So on weekdays, many living materials were collected by the thin monkeys at Hushan prison. Finally, it was transported to the arsenal by helicopter, delivered, but in Hushan, there are mostly old and weak women and children, and there are fewer people in the scavenger team. The materials collected are not enough. Xiaogu said helplessly. Team Zhang, it really doesn't work. Let's contact the leader. What are you thinking, Xiaogu? So many of us still can't solve the problem of eating, and we go to trouble the leader. Isn't it shameful? Zhang Haoping shook his head, then said, in this way, you organize 2 teams of 20 scavengers, bring a few more mechanical spiders, and go out to collect supplies. After all, Zhang Haoping managed the southwest base. A solution was soon given. Okay, Cottony nodded. Just as he was about to leave, Zhang Haoping stopped him. Remember, Xiaogu, as subordinates, we should solve our problems, instead of having a little trouble, go to trouble the leader, understand? 5 Zhang Heoping said earnestly. Point. But just as the voice fell. Point. The lights above his head suddenly flickered. Point. Then click. Point. The surroundings became pitch black. What happened? Looks like a power outage. The machines are stopped and the assembly lines are not moving. What should I do? It's so dark. Listen to the whispers of those survivors in the dark. Point. Zhang Heoping's face was very embarrassed because he just said, you can't go to trouble the chief when you encounter a small matter. But now, this little thing is obviously beyond his ability. Team Zhang, is this a trivial matter now? And right now, in the darkness, Xiaogu's untimely question came. Zhang Heoping. Chapter 193 Power Outage? Simple. Boil the water. The time comes to evening. Chu Xiu was riding a motorcycle. He didn't know where he got it. Leisurely returned to the community. The backseat of the car was also strapped to a bloody hind leg of an unknown animal. Look at the patterns on the fur. It's like some kind of cat. Where's Chen Miao? Let her bake this leg, and we'll have a whole tiger feast tonight. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he directly threw the tiger legs in the backseat on the ground. Point. Here movement. Point. Several women in the villa came out one after another at the same time. Jenny, a striped-winged tiger who usually lives near the artificial lake in the center of the community. Point. He seemed to smell something and came over. After a period of training. Point. Jenny's injury has fully recovered, and she has even grown in size from the initial body length of 6 meters. It is now close to 7 meters. Raw. Jenny came over. He lowered his head and sniffed the tiger leg on the ground, and a strange expression appeared on the huge tiger head. Point. Round eyes stared at Chu Xiu. Point. Seems to be full of resentment. Look at what? This TM doesn't belong to your family. Chu Xiu slapped Jenny on the head. Point. At this time, he has completely mastered the power of the skyrocketing, and there will be no phenomenon of being light or heavy. Point. And Jenny is a B-class spotted winged tiger and it's a B+ grade. It is expected to break through the existence of rank A, and what Chu Xiu killed today was just a C-class beast called the black-brown saber-toothed tiger, not the same race as Jenny at all. Point. And this beast called the black-brown saber-toothed tiger is notorious for its good meat quality. Raw. Jenny let out a cry of grievance. Point. It seems to say, not a species, but also a tiger. Stop talking nonsense, otherwise labor and capital will use your tiger whip to make wine. Chu Xiu doesn't care about Jenny's resistance. Jenny is a girl. Point. When little Annie heard Chu Xiu's words, she couldn't help but say something. Oh, yes, forget about it. Only then did Chu Xiu remember that she was still a tigress. It's alright, don't talk about it. Tao Fu and Annie are both by the side. Point. At this moment, Yen Yi walked over with a black line. Point. Do not let Chu Xiu continue to discuss this topic. Point. After all, Tao Fu and Annie are still young, so it is not suitable for them to discuss whether to whip or not. If there is no problem, will we have a barbecue today? See all the dust fall to the ground. Point. Chen Miao just came over, said, bent over to pick up the tiger leg from the ground, but she obviously underestimated the weight of the tiger leg. Point. Tried twice. Point. Chen Miao couldn't pick it up. Point. In the end, she could only turn to Yin Yi for help. Look at me. For this kind of thing that can show strength, Yin Yi, a tiger girl, has always been responsive to requests. Without further ado. Point. He picked up the tiger legs and walked to the backyard. Point. Get ready for an outdoor BBQ tonight. Point. Drip. Yet at this moment. Point. The communicator rang. Point. Before it was connected, Chu Xiu had already pushed back based on the electromagnetic wave and knew that it was the call from the Jishan arsenal. What's the matter, boss? It's like this. After connecting. Point. Zhang Heoping said the question a little embarrassingly. Point. After some explanation, Chu Xiu also understood the problem with the arsenal. Point. After a power outage. Point. The arsenal has always relied on internal backup power units to maintain the power needs of several production lines. Point. But now, due to the sudden addition of several production lines, the backup power unit, unable to withstand this power burden, has already shut down 2 groups. The remaining groups can only maintain a small number of 1 or 2 production lines. Okay, I understand. Chu Xiu didn't say much and hung up the phone. After learning about the situation. Point. He knows Zhang Heoping must have no choice but to ask himself for help. Point. Because of power issues, not to mention Zhang Heoping, Chu Xiu has a headache himself. Do not forget Jiang Garden is still burning diesel. You go to set up the barbecue first. I will come over later. Chu Xiu finished. Go straight to villa number 9. The children looked at each other with some helplessness in their eyes, but they were not jealous of Beizao or anything. After all, Beizao is really powerful. Another reason is that they have short hands to hold people and soft mouths to eat people. Beizao designed a corresponding enhancement plan for each of them. Such as Yin Yi's nano suit. Even Anna's spotted winged tiger has nothing to do with Beizao's suggestion to Chu Xiu. TT. The liquid metal that Chu Xiu wears today is actually designed for EQIU. Awakened manipulator. The biggest weakness is the fragility of the body. So Beizao planned to design a battle suit for EQIU to protect herself. Besides Anteo Fuzai's even Chen Miao and Zaojin, two ordinary people. Beizao also prepared a super soldier gene potion for them. Although many of these because Beizao is too busy, it is only a plan at the moment. But the girls still reached a consensus that is, in the community, besides Chu Xiu, Beizao is the second most important person. Therefore, on weekdays, Beizao doesn't care if he needs to tickle or something. All women will be satisfied the first time. They even went out to collect what Beizao needed. Let's go. Let's set up the barbecue stall. Carrying tiger legs, the girls came to the backyard of the villa. At the same time, Chu Xiu has already told Beizao about the power problem. Well, I've already thought about that. In the end, Beizao was not surprised at all. Even after he finished speaking, he brought up a few design drawings on the computer. What is this? Chu Xiu watched for a long time, but didn't see anything. Nuclear reactor. Beizao wrote lightly. Nuclear. Chu Xiu's tone was stagnant, and he quickly asked, fusion or fission? Of course fission. Luo, didn't I say I have no idea about controllable nuclear fusion at present? Beizao replied, wait a minute, aren't fission reactors all that big, guy? Why is this thing so small? Chu Xiu noticed on the drawing the size of this thing marked is about 2 meters high, cylindrical, and no more than half a meter in diameter, the kind that can be stuffed into a car. Lianuo is good, not at all the size of a nuclear fission reactor. Don't you pay attention to technology news before the end of the day? Facing Chu Xiu's doubts, Beizao asked back, no, normal people who pay attention to that. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he couldn't help but laugh, because obviously, Beizao paid attention to technology news. Beizao was silent for a while, then slowly said, the Free Nation created this miniature nuclear reaction years ago. 5-hour country then built a comparable reactor village. These things work the same way. It's just that I designed this one. It's smaller. Beizao said slowly, just a good one. Chu Xiu was speechless, but anyway, the energy problem is solved anyway. Beizao, do you want to go out for a barbecue? Chu Xiu asked. I'm not free. Can you bake it and bring it in for me? Chu Xiu. Chapter 194. Annie, starved to death. I wouldn't eat tiger meat. Fine, it will be delivered to you later. In the end, Chu Xiu agreed to Beizao's request. No way. Who made you a baby? After speaking, Chu Xiu prepared to leave the laboratory. Is this gone? At this moment, Beizao stopped Chu Xiu. What's wrong? Isn't the power problem solved? Chu Xiu turned around and said, puzzled, where is it resolved? Have you found the materials for the reactor? Beizao asked. Chu Xiu was at a loss for words indeed. Unlike other things, nuclear reactors are strictly regulated. Like critical enriched uranium. That is uranium-2. This thing will not circulate in the market at all. There is no reactor related material even in the Jishin arsenal. I remember you told me last time that there is a nuclear function research institute very close to us. 5. It's like 100 kilometers. You should be able to find all the materials for the reactor there, right? Chu Xiu looked at Beizao and asked. Relevant dialogue appears in chapter 62. 116 kilometers. Beizao gave more accurate distance information. Then shook his head. But The institute won't stock up on too much radioactive material. Generally, they submit application materials on an ad hoc basis when a research project requires it. Bay. Xiao seems to be very familiar with the models of these institutes. Chu Xiu finished listening. On the contrary, he was a little curious about Bei Xiao's identity before the end of the day. However, he did not rashly ask, because whether it was in the previous life or in this life, Bei Xiao has always been tight-lipped about his identity before the apocalypse. In the 2 days when Yin Yi was Bei Xiao's assistant, she had asked similar questions. The result is, Yin Yi ended her assistant career. Then, where should we look? Can't find a nuclear power plant? Chu Xiu no longer thought about Bei Xiao's identity, but concentrated on the energy crisis in front of him, and asked the reason why I said I can't go. It is because in his memory, many nuclear power plants are post-apocalyptic, because they are unmanaged and unmaintained. Leakage problems occurred one after another. Why not? It is only 92 kilometers from our nearest nuclear power plant, which is a bit closer than the institute. But Bei Xiao obviously had a different idea. And, on the issue of leaks, she's obviously already prepared. Don't worry about radiation. The liquid metal suit you wore today and Yin Yi's nanofiber body armor all have built-in anti-radiation units. As long as the radiation dose does not exceed 20,000 Ronchians, nothing will happen. Bei Xiao said slowly. Chu Xiu was silent. After a while, Yao asked, did you expect such a day? Bei Xiao admitted it generously. From the time you decided to occupy the arsenal, I realized that with the increase in productivity, the energy demand must also increase significantly. And without mastering controlled nuclear fusion, conventional fission reactors have become the best choice. So, from that time on, I have prepared radiation protection units for every suit of combat uniforms that follow. While admitting it, Bei Xiao also explained, when he started planning. Thanks to Chu Xiu getting to know Bei Xiao. Know what kind of person she is. If this were someone as suspicious as KOKO, he would definitely think Bei Xiao in a bad direction. Since you've made a plan, I don't have much to say, so. Chu Xiu paused, then changed the subject. So how much do you want to eat? Bei Xiao's indifferent and beautiful face was rarely stunned for a second. But soon, she responded, 4. Meat, 100 grams, roe. Chu Xiu nodded. After leaving Bei Xiao's laboratory, Chu Xiu returned to the villa. As soon as I came in, I heard a playful fight coming from the backyard. The open-air barbecue has completed the preparatory work. The tiger leg has been processed by Chen Miaoyu, and it is being marinated. The other side. Yin Yi moved a long table and placed it in the backyard. Li Qiu used candles and light bars to set up lights around, and the newcomer Zhao Jin played beside him. Everyone is very happy. In this cruel doomsday, it is rare to have such a chance. Don't think about zombies. Don't think about beasts, have fun and relax. Obviously, everyone cherishes this opportunity. Even little Tao Fu was sitting on the grass in the backyard. Control the soil with the Imperial Soil. Play a game like building castles, a mini version of the mud castle. Rising from the grass, there is a mini version of the moat next to it. Even if you look closely, you can see some small dots on the mud castle. Dots represent soldiers. Everyone was looking forward to the next BBQ dinner. The only one who didn't take part in it was little Annie. At this time he was comforting the striped-winged tiger beside him. Don't worry, Jenny, I won't eat tiger meat anyway. I promise you. That. And comforted Jenny. While reassuring her that he would never eat tiger meat. After all, from Annie's point of view, her partner is a tiger. If she eats tiger meat, how much will it hurt Jenny's heart? Raw. Here. Annie's promise. Jenny's mood improved a little. The huge tiger head lowered and rubbed Annie's little face affectionately. At this time, Chu Xiu walked into the backyard. You are here, Chu Xiu. Yeah, it's finally time to start. Seeing Chu Xiu, the girls immediately showed bright smiles on their faces. This time it wasn't because of what happened to Chu Xiu. Their smiles simply because the BBQ can start. Oops, I'm starving. GKD, GKD. Bake it up. The charcoal fire has already been lit. Yin Yi, who couldn't wait, picked up the marinated tiger meat skewers and put them on the charcoal fire. Soon a mouth-watering aroma of barbecued meat permeated the air. Guru An, who was not far away, could smell the fragrance. Disappointing tears flowed from the corners of his mouth. Raw Jenny immediately turned her head and stared at Annie with a pair of tiger eyes. Well, don't worry, Jenny, I promised you. My Annie starved to death today. After a while, Annie huddled beside Chu Xiu, blocking Jenny's gaze with Chu Xiu's stalwart body. At the same time, he licked the skewer. Isn't that right, Jenny? Mizuki-san cooked so well. Annie eats at the same time. It is vague. Chapter 1. Going to the nuclear power plant. The next day, it wasn't until the sun shone into the house that Chu Xiu woke up in a daze. What happened? Seeing the mess in the house, Chu Xiu rubbed his hair. Can't figure it out. Just remember, halfway through the barbecue, the two children, Annie and Taofu, went back to rest. The rest of Chu Xiu and his children are eating barbecue, drinking, and drinking. F***K. Suddenly, Chu Xiu remembered something. Nothing will happen, right? Chu Xiu hurriedly went downstairs. Just got down. I saw Yin Yi, who was limping. It's over. Yin Yi, who was a Malay awakener, was like this, and Chu Xiu was even more worried about the safety of the other people. Especially Chen Mizuki, who was newly added last night. They are all ordinary people. What about Kiyu and Chen Miyu? Chu Xiu stopped Yin Yi and asked. Yin Yi didn't need to speak. It was only after looking at Chu Xiu for a while with a strange look, he said quietly, now you know you're in a hurry? Why did you go early? After Yin Yi finished speaking, she said angrily, except for me and Zaojin, both of them are with Beizaro. Zaojin also participated? Chu Xiu was taken aback. At this moment, Zaojin came over from the kitchen with a glass of water and happened to hear Chu Xiu's words. Suddenly his face flushed red. Chief, I didn't. Zaojin shook his head again and again. Said it had nothing to do with him. But obviously, although she didn't get involved, she must have seen something with her own eyes. Grass. It's so outrageous. Chu Xiu patted his forehead, but fortunately, Taofu and Annie left the stage ahead of schedule. Otherwise it would be even more outrageous. Okay, I'll take a look. Chu Xiu finished. Go out and go straight to Villa number 9. Sure enough, in Beizaro's laboratory, he saw Chen Miyu and Li Qiyu. It's just that the picture is not the same as what Chu Xiu expected. The two girls are fine. Sitting opposite Beizaro, he seemed to be discussing something with Beizaro. Cough cough. Chu Xiu coughed lightly, attracting their attention. See Chu Xiu. Beizaro didn't react at all. Li Qiyu and Chen Miyu's eyes flickered. Especially Chen Miyu, the successful lady who used to be worth hundreds of millions. For a moment, she didn't dare to look at Chu Xiu. Who would have thought? Such a woman who is playing a lot in the mall. Haven't even been in love yet. Are you alright? Chu Xiu came over and asked embarrassingly. No, it's alright. Li Qiyu and Chen Miyu shook their heads quickly. Then they said to Beizaro, then it's settled. Beizaro, let's go first. Done. The two girls left the laboratory. Only Chu Xiu was left standing there with a confused expression. What's the deal? What were you talking about just now? Chu Xiu had no choice but to look at Beizaro. Nothing. Beizaro shook his head and asked, nonsense. It's just that I want to speed up the research and development of genetic medicine. 5. Chu Xiu had a question mark on his face. But he did not continue to ask questions. After all, people are fine. Man, as long as nothing happens, it means nothing happened. Okay, since it's okay, then I'll go. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he was ready to leave. The departure in his mouth is naturally to go to the nuclear power plant mentioned yesterday. Wait, I'll go with you. At this moment, Beizaro actually said that she would also go with her. What are you going to do? Chu Xiu is a little puzzled. What are you doing here as a non-combatant? If there is any danger, it is too late to protect yourself. It's too late to regret it. Don't worry, I won't hold you back. Obviously, Beizaro saw Chu Xiu's concerns. Done. In front of Chu Xiu, he took off his white coat. just when Chu Xiu thought he could appreciate something beautiful early in the morning. But I only saw a black tights. It's a bit like Yin Yi's nanosuit, but it doesn't have such exaggerated muscle lines, and the overall shape is more streamlined and well proportioned. And on the surface of the nanofibers, a layer of liquid metal is also covered. A combination of nanofibers and liquid metal? Chu Xiu just glanced at it and found the special feature of this suit newly designed. Chu Xiu asked. This is obviously the product of combining the nanosuit and the liquid metal suit. It was made overnight last night. For flowers. Beizaro nodded. I don't know if it's an illusion. When Beizaro said these words, Chu Xiu saw a trace of resentment in her eyes, as if to say, I'm working all night here, you're better. I almost got killed. Cough. Cough. Okay then, you go with me this time. At this point, Chu Xiu has no reason to refuse. Soon, Chu Xiu and Beizaro got into the Gulf Stream 650 driven by Zheojin. Fly towards the nuclear power plant. For Chu Xiu, although the flashing speed is faster, it can theoretically reach 6 times the speed of sound, but for a distance of more than 90 kilometers, even if the energy is exhausted, it will not be able to catch up. In addition, warp flicker has the word ultra long distance teleportation. And it can also be transported with people. But the problem is that Chu Xiu has never tried this function. Moreover, there is no effective means of protection to resist the powerful mimetic pollution of the warp. Think of this. Chu Xiu couldn't help but look at Beizaro, who was sitting across from him. Even on a plane, Beizaro didn't let go of work either. I saw her leaning on the seat gracefully, her slender legs supporting the notebook, and her slender fingers quickly tapping on the keyboard. Chu Xiu still does not know what brand this notebook is. In addition, there is one more point worth noting. That is, before boarding the plane, Beizaro specially brought a small box similar to a pet cage, which is now placed next to her seat. What's in this cage? Chu Xiu asked along the way. Jelly. I thought it might be useful, so I brought it with me. Beizaro stared at the screen without raising his head. Jelly? Chu Xiu was slightly taken aback. Then I remembered that this was the name that Li Qiuyu and the others gave itchy monsters. Looking at Beizaro, who was working hard, Chu Xiu hesitated to tell her about the warp space, because I really don't want to increase the burden on Beizaro anymore. What do you want to say? But Beizaro actually noticed Chu Xiu's difference. That is to say, while she is working hard, some attention remains on Chu Xiu. Beizaro, do you know anything about the subspace? Chu Xiu asked the mountain tentatively. Chapter 196. Because it's you, it has meaning. Subspace. You mean the subspace that separates different universes under the multiverse theory, or do you mean that subspace that cuts off the middle ground between matter space and antimatter space? Facing Chu Xiu's question, Beizaro instead threw 2 questions. If it's the former, then I don't know, because the multiverse is just a theoretical conjecture right now. We can't prove it exists, and we can't prove it doesn't exist. And if it's the latter. Speaking of this, Beizaro seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly raised his head to meet Chu Xiu's eyes. Did you find something over the crack in time and space? Chu Xiu didn't expect Beizaro to be so sharp. She just mentioned warp space, and she immediately thought of the crack in time and space at the H-City Zoo. That's right. Since Beizaro had already guessed it, Chu Xiu had no need to hide it. Then, 593. Chu Xiu briefly told Beizaro about his last war journey. And those terrifying beings found in the warp. Beizaro finished listening. There was silence. Then open a set of data on the notebook. I finally know what this set of data is for. This set of data. It was Kara who had returned from the zoo. The residual data of the instrument carried by the soldier in black. According to the data inversely, Beizaro guessed that this might be some kind of space stabilization device. But it's just a guess, because some of the key data, even Beizaro, has been unable to parse. What is this? Chu Xiu glanced at the screen. There is only a bunch of complicated data on the screen, and a part of the broken structure diagram. Remember, the instrument we asked Kara to look for, that's part of the data from that instrument. I speculate that it might be some sort of steric stabilization device. Beizaro adjusted the data. One thing I didn't understand before is that part of the data of this machine does not match our time and space at all. At first I thought it was mimetic contamination that changed this set of data and made it wrong, but now I see. The data is not wrong. The original intention of this machine is not to stabilize the real space we are in. It's used to stabilize the warp bay. Xiao explained calmly. While using the clues just obtained, a secondary analysis of this set of data is carried out. It can be seen from the working state that parsing this set of data is also a difficult problem for Beizaro. Chu Xiu keenly discovered this. Beizaro, if it were you, could you build this machine? Chu Xiu asked. Now, I can't. Beizaro said simply. Chu Xiu was silent for a while and couldn't help but ask. Could it be that the maker of this machine is smarter than you? Yes. At least in quantum physics, I'm not as good as him. Beizaro generously admitted his own shortcomings. That is to say, if I asked you to build a device that would protect people in the warp, wouldn't you be able to build it? Chu Xiu asked. Right. I can't make it right now, Beizaro admitted. Fine. Chu Xiu nodded helplessly. But he didn't say much. After all, Beizaro is a human being, not a god. No matter how talented he is not omnipotent. Just when Chu Xiu prepared to temporarily give up the warp teleportation, Beizaro suddenly changed his words. But when I finish analyzing this set of data, I can help you create what you want. When speaking point, the corners of Beizaro's mouth rose slightly. A smile like a piece of pure ice that has not melted for 10,000 years. It has finally melted a little, like a ray of warm sun in the cold winter. Chu Xiu stared blankly. This time, he was sure he was absolutely right. Not a hallucination. Beizaro really laughed. You just laughed, didn't you? I don't talk nonsense. But when Chu Xiu asked, Beizaro returned to his emotionless indifference. Only the slightly flickering eyes betrayed her. C. Chu Xiu finally couldn't hold back. He stepped forward directly, supported Beizaro's cheek with his hand, and took a small peck. Beizaro opened his beautiful eyes in the clear and translucent eyes. There is incomparable purity. Drip drip, heart rate is too high. Pay attention to rest. At this moment, the life monitoring device on Beizaro's wrist sounded an alarm. A siren is heard. Chu Xiu then returned to his seat with a guilty conscience. And Beizaro as if not responding. Clear eyes, still looking forward. Drip drip, the heart rate is too high. Take a break until the alarm sounded a second time. Only then did Beizaro react, and he quickly lowered his head and continued to work as if nothing had happened. But a blush on her cheeks betrayed her. Drip drip, heart rate is too high. Pay attention to rest. The siren still didn't end. And this also proves Beizaro's calmness, which is superficial. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Only a life detection device remained, where the alarm continued untimely. Boss, we're almost there. Fortunately, at this time, Xiaojin rescued the scene in time, eased the awkward atmosphere, so let's go. Chu Xiu looked at Beizaro. Beizaro nodded, then silently turned off the alarm device on his wrist. The blush on his cheeks quickly disappeared, and the whole person returned to that absolutely rational indifference. See this. Chu Xiu seemed to understand something. It's not that Beizaro has no emotions, but her emotions are overwhelmed by absolute rationality. Cause all her actions. It's all about reason, not emotion. System, expand Beizaro's attributes. Chu Xiu thought about it. Open Beizaro's properties panel again. Name, Beizaro. Gender, female. Loyalty. 0 talent. High speed thinking. LV4. Absolutely rational. It has been a long time since Chu Xiu opened Beizaro's property panel last time. So much so that Chu Xiu has never checked Beizaro's loyalty. 0. C. Beizaro's loyalty value. Chu Xiu was stunned for a moment, and then he reacted. An absolutely sane person. There is no such thing as loyalty and betrayal in 4.1. Only based on rational thinking. Can't 0 think of this. Chu Xiu suddenly asked, Beizaro, can you kiss me? Beizaro, who just stood up from his seat, paused. Looked up. With clear and pure eyes, he looked at Chu Xiu. This action doesn't make sense. Beiziro's meaning is very simple. Zinkis can't get pregnant and can replenish energy like eating. So it's a pointless move. But, yes, but, the next second. Beiziro stood on tiptoe. It's meaningful because it's you Beiziro. PS. The picture is Beiziro. Asterisk caret caret asterisk. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, The Beautiful Sea of Flowers in the Radiation Area. After a small interlude. Beiziro walked to the cab calmly, as if nothing had happened. Chu Xiu wiped off a trace of red from his mouth and walked over. Leader, the destination is ahead. Zheojin, who has been concentrating on flying the plane, has no idea what happened in the cabin. At this time she are seriously looking for the landing site. But it was desolate below, and there was no open area to land on. No need to land. You are hovering in the air. The fuel should be enough, and I will notify you when you need to land. Due to uncertainty about whether there is a leak in the nuclear power plant below, Chu Xiu did not let Zheojin land in the end. Instead, let her keep hovering at a high altitude. Anyway, the Gulf Stream 650 still has more than half of the fuel gauge. If calculated by distance, can fly thousands of kilometers. Okay. Zheo Jin nodded. Then, do I descend? With permission from Chu Xiu. The Gulf Stream 650 that Zheojin was driving began to drop in altitude and passed through the clouds. Put on your suit and then jump right away. I'll catch you with a magnetic field. While the plane was descending, Chu Xiu exhorted Beiziro. Okay. Beiziro nodded. Then press the control panel on your wrist. The next second, the flowing liquid metal was wrapped in black nanofibers and quickly wrapped the whole body. Forms a fully wrapped black battle suit. Appeared on Beiziro. Click the jet black visor fell. Completely cover up a beautiful face. Why can't I get a transparent visor? Chu Xiu couldn't help but complain. But the voice just fell. The liquid metal on Beiziro's visor flipped, and in just a few seconds, it turned from black to translucent. Although not as translucent as glass, but at least I can see Beiziro's face clearly. Chu Xiu. Soon. The altitude of the plane dropped to less than 400 meters. It's already a low altitude flight. Leader, the terrain ahead is complicated. You can't descend any further. Zheo Jin pulled the nose of the machine and said at the same time, understood. Chu Xiu didn't say much. In fact, if it wasn't for taking care of Beiziro, Chu Xiu wouldn't have to let Zheojin drop at all. He is alone. No matter how high you jump down, nothing will happen. Because there are two double insurances of repulsive magnetic field and flicker. But no matter what Beiziro says, it's just a researcher with no combat experience. Skydiving, or skydiving without a parachute, is definitely not an easy thing for her. But next second, Chu Xiu knew that he was completely overthinking it. Jump. I'll catch you. As Chu Xiu said, his mind moved, and he opened the side door of the plane. But before he finished speaking, Beiziro jumped down in a standard skydiving posture. He even adjusted his sliding posture in the air. Everything goes smoothly. Very handsome. Chu Xiu didn't expect that one day he would be handsome by a woman. Done. Control the magnetic field to close the hatch. At the same time, the liquid metal suit on the body was changed from jacket mode to full body mode. Swish. The next second, Chu Xiu disappeared into the cabin. After several consecutive downward flashes, he landed on the ground directly before Beiziro. The landing point is an ordinary farmland. Not far away. You can also see a deserted farmstead. There is also no information about the nuclear power plant on the surrounding street signs. If it is a peaceful age before the end. Drive past here. It is estimated that no one would have thought that just a few kilometers away from this place, there is a nuclear power plant. The only thing that might make people feel strange, there are several veteran service stations around here. It seems to be a confidential area. Chu Xiu said calmly. Like facilities such as prisons, nuclear power plants are also invisible on the map. In fact, the city is not as far from the nuclear power plant as it is imagined, generally only 15 to 20 kilometers. If it is a coastal city, this distance may be shortened. After observing the surrounding environment, Beizao also fell down. Point C. Chu Xiu released a repulsive magnetic field. Point he firmly caught Beizao, who was falling rapidly. Huh. What is this? When the repulsive magnetic field wraps around Beizao, Chu Xiu discovered that there seemed to be something under Beizao's arms through magnetic field induction. Take a closer look. It turned out to be a glider-like device formed from liquid metal. It seems that, even if I don't pick you up, you can still land. Chu Xiu smiled slightly. Put Beizao on the ground. Beizao did not deny it. After landing, immediately walk in one direction. Go this way. Chu Xiu followed. The two moved side by side in the direction of the nuclear power plant. The strange thing is, I don't know if it's the end of the world and the place is sparsely populated. Or what happened after the end. In short, Chu Xiu and Beizao did not encounter any zombies or beasts along the way. The two walked side by side. It's like a young couple coming to the countryside for an outing. No radiation detected. As he got closer and closer to the nuclear power plant, Beizao glanced at the Geiger counter on his shirt. There are only some negligible values above. The kind that is harmless to humans. Looks like we came just in time. The nuclear power plant here hasn't leaked yet. After Chu Xiu finished speaking, he switched back to the jacket mode. Without the constraints of the battlesuit, Chu Xiu was in a good mood. At the same time, a gust of breeze blew, bringing a hint of refreshing floral fragrance. Look past the scent of flowers in the pile of weeds in front. There were actually a few delicate flowers in full bloom. The pure white, the coquettish red, the hot yellow, all of them were squeezed out from a pile of weeds. Very striking. Wait. They're still flowers at this time. As a standard straight man, Chu Xiu knows nothing about flowers, the kind that are indistinguishable between roses and peonies, but it's already May. The weather is starting to warm up. Spring has long passed. If you follow the 24 solar terms, many days have passed since the beginning of summer. How come such delicate flowers are still blooming, and they are still in the wild? The perfect bride in the story of chapter 198. This is not a known flower of any kind. Beizao glanced at it. It is recognized that this is not a known flower in nature. Hear this. Chu Xiu was immediately alert. Go back. Done. Chu Xiu raised his hand and a lightning bolt threw it. Boom. Dazzling thunder. In an instant, a big hole exploded in the ground. Those few delicate flowers were instantly destroyed, and the overflowing electric light also ignited the surrounding weeds. The flames began to spread along the vegetation. The more it burns, the more prosperous it is. What are you doing? Beizao turned to look at Chu Xiu. Clear and translucent eyes, with a trace of inquiry. Lines try. Chu Xiu was a little embarrassed. He thought that these flowers were the same as the black vines on the mountain. They are all dangerous monsters in the form of plants. It's just ordinary flowers. There's nothing special about it, except that it looks a little better and appears a bit out of place. Go ahead. The nuclear power plant is just ahead. Beizao didn't say much. After all, being vigilant is not a bad thing. After she finished speaking, she passed directly through the burning flame. Chu Xiu followed suit. When approaching the flame, wave your hand gently. The soil on the ground immediately swelled up like waves, covering the burning flame and extinguishing it. Since the royal soil upgrade to LV5, Chu Xiu's ability to control the earth is also getting stronger. Now as long as you land on the ground, even if you are wearing shoes, you can communicate with the earth and use part of the earth defense ability. But only part of it. The down to earth limit remains. This limitation is actually part of the ability to control the soil. Unless Chu Xiu acquires a similar ability to merge with you two, it will be possible to remove this limitation. After extinguishing the flame, Chu Xiu followed Beizao's pace. As the nuclear power plant gets closer and closer, Chu Xiu found more and more showy flowers around. From the sporadic one or two flowers in the grass, it gradually turned against the guests and became full of flowers. There are not many places the original grass can be seen. The refreshing floral fragrance floated from all directions, and the rich fragrance was a little intoxicating. Beizao glanced at the air monitoring device on the battlesuit. The fragrance of flowers is not poisonous, finished she. Walked directly through the flowers. As a woman, Beizao has no love for these flowers and plants. Wearing a battle uniform, she stepped directly over it. Didn't move a step for it. Beizao, don't you think these flowers are a little strange? Chu Xiu picked up the pace. Walking in front, stopped Beizao. Even if these flowers did not show any strangeness, the number was enough to make people feel strange. A desolate place near a nuclear power plant. Why are there so many flowers, and plants need nutrients to grow. With so many flowers blooming at the same time, where do they get their nutrients? So, you're going to destroy all these flowers? Beizao asked. With what she knows about Chu Xiu. This is what Chu Xiu is most likely to do. Chu Xiu did not deny it. Find something wrong, destroy it. This idea is simple and crude, but it works really well. I don't advise you to waste your energy here, but if you insist on doing it, I won't stop it. After Beizao finished speaking, he stepped aside. Quietly watching Chu Xiu perform. 9. Chu Xiu did not understand. Facing such a strange sea of flowers, why was Beizao unguarded? No, why are you so sure it's safe here? Chu Xiu couldn't help asking. Facing Chu Xiu's question, Beizao did not speak, but just opened the pet cage that had been hanging on his waist. Then he grabbed a slime-like creature and threw it on the ground. Giggle. Cluck. The itchy monster that was thrown on the ground not only did not have any strangeness, but happily jelly-like hands, touching the surrounding flowers, constantly giggling. And the flowers it touched actually swayed left and right, as if laughing. At the same time, a fragrant tea smell emanated from the itchy monster. Hearing the smell, Chu Xiu's complexion changed instantly. Because it was his favorite scent. Also mentioned earlier, itching releases a pheromone when it uses its abilities. This pheromone will make people around you feel like smelling your favorite scent. Why would tickle use abilities on a flower? Could it be that these flowers are alive? Chu Xiu had a startling thought. With this idea, Chu Xiu quickly looked at Beizao. I do not know either. Beizao shook his head. All I know is that there is no warning from Jelly, which means there is no danger around. Although Chu Xiu is nominally the owner of Jelly. But to be honest, Chu Xiu really didn't spend much time with this little thing. Instead, it was Beizao, often spent with itch for research purposes. So really, Beizao knows itching better than Chu Xiu. Just when the two were puzzled by Tickle's ability to use flowers. Not far away. In the direction of the nuclear power plant, an unfamiliar flying beast flew over. And far away. The flying beast found Chu Xiu and Beizao below. Roar, accompanied by a roar, the flying beast swooped forward decisively. But just when it swooped to a certain height and entered the range of the sea of flowers. An invisible wave spread out. In an instant. The flying beast exploded instantly, but it didn't explode into flesh and blood. Instead, in the air, it turned into red petals all over the sky, slowly drifting down. The scene in front of you is absolutely beautiful. Like the petals sprinkled at the wedding the wind blows, these gorgeous petals are flying all over the sky, making people feel as if they are in a fantasy country. But Chu Xiu had no intention of admiring the beauty. Because of the sight in front of him, he was reminded of a terrifying legend in his previous life. Li Nor Heo, monster that only exists in the story. Perfect Bride. The moment Chu Xiu pronounced the name, a breeze blew up and rolled up the flowers on the ground, so the whole sea of flowers floated up. In the sea of flowers a hazy figure loomed, and as Chu Xiu watched, the image of this figure became more and more complete. In the sky of petals, she gradually transformed into a breathtakingly beautiful figure. Although still vague. But you can still see that everything about her is perfect, impeccable. It is almost a general village tailored according to Chu Xiu's aesthetics. Wrong, just when the attention is about to be completely drawn to it, Chu Xiu suddenly woke up. This not only has the effect of spiritual shielding, but also has something to do with his own spiritual power. Chu Xiu, what's wrong with you? Beizaro noticed the strangeness of Chu Xiu. I'm fine. Chu Xiu shook his head. Look at the sea of flowers again, but there is no one left. Chapter 199 Illusion? The fear in Chu Xiu's heart. What are you looking at, Bei? Zio noticed Chu Xiu's gaze point obviously. That hazy figure did not appear in her field of vision. Nothing. Anyway, be careful. It's a little weird here. Chu Xiu shook his head point. The Perfect Bride is a story that has been circulated among many refugees in past lives. It's about a monster that hunts male survivors and the many versions of the story circulating. The image of the Perfect Bride is not fixed point. It may be youthful and lively, it may be glamorous, it may be mature, it may be lolly point. In short, the Perfect Bride will be transformed into people's hearts, the most in line with their XP partner image point. Even in some stories, she, or it, did not appear in this human form point. As far as Chu Xiu has heard, there are Catwoman, Centaur, female zombie and so on point. There's even a monitor lizard. In short, those stories, it often begins with the survivor being seduced by the Perfect Bride. There is little controversy about this. What is controversial is the ending. There are two common versions. One version holds that the Perfect Bride is a kind of yokai similar to ancient legends. She will keep the bewitched survivor and will absorb his yang energy for a long time. But at the same time, the Perfect Bride will also spend a happy time with the survivor until his death. Therefore, many survivors even hope that they will meet the Perfect Bride, even if they will eventually die, at least have a happy time. The other version is more brutal. The Perfect Bride in this version is just a monster with strange abilities. It can transform human flesh and blood into plants. Similar to the reorganization of matter, in this version, there is no happy time, there is just a vegetative death in disguise point. Halfway through, Chu Xiu stopped suddenly point. I don't know if it is an illusion, but Chu Xiu feels that he is thinking more and more about the Perfect Bride point in mind. The image of the hazy figure I saw just now became clearer. You don't look like you're okay. What the hell happened? Beizaro asked again point. Although Chu Xiu had said that it was alright, Beizaro obviously didn't think so, didn't you see that fierce beast turned into petals, and the way just now. Chu Xiu briefly described the scenes he just saw point. Beizaro listened calmly point. Finally shook his head. No, I didn't see any beasts, nor did I see any vague figures. Beizaro finished. Seems to be worried that Chu Xiu doesn't believe it. So I called up the video recording function that comes with the suit. The picture recorded by the battle suit is very clear from the time they landed to the present. They had never encountered any flying beasts, not to mention what turned into petals. This Chu Xiu was in a trance. Have I seen a hallucination? As soon as the words fell, Chu Xiu denied this conjecture point, because hallucinations are also a type of mental attack point with spiritual shielding LV4. It stands to reason that ordinary hallucinations will not take effect on him at all point. And, if the interference of the hallucination is really strong enough to break through the mental shield point, then why can't Beizaro see? She has no means of defense point. It can't be that this illusion is directed at oneself. Gluck. Cluck. Just when Chu Xiu wondered, the itch on the ground seemed to smell something point. While giggling point, while holding out a small hand towards Chu Xiu. Go away. Chu Xiu was not in the mood to play with itchy monsters at this time point. After scolding, he ignored it. Is there a possibility? What you see is not a hallucination. It is the fear in your heart. Beizaro glanced at itching and said calmly, Deb, jelly smells fear on you. It wants to help you absorb these negative emotions. Beizaro is very familiar with the habits of jelly point. Whenever it makes this move point, it means that there are negative emotions such as fear and anger around someone. Chu Xiu was silent for a moment. Go on. 9 then point. Divert the topic point like nothing happened point. Beizaro didn't say much and silently bent over to pick up the jelly and put it into the cage point, then followed point. The two walked through a beautiful sea of flowers, but the atmosphere was much more dignified than before point. Chu Xiu, who was walking in the front, looked gloomy and didn't know what he was thinking point. Beizaro followed closely behind point. She was the same as usual, and there was no change in her face point. Soon point the nuclear power plant appeared in front of the two of them. But it's not quite what I imagined at first. Along the way, the index of the Geiger counter has always been normal, leading both of them to believe that the nuclear power plant has not leaked. But there is a scene that goes against common sense. I saw that the cooling towers of the nuclear power plant, with two tops, were billowing thick smoke. But strangely, there are flowers around the nuclear power plant. Some even, like vines, cling to the surface of the cooling tower. Wrap the entire cooling tower. Forms a huge column of flowers. These colorful flowers, swaying from side to side in this terrible radiation zone, seemed to absorb radiation. Drip. The Geiger counter finally responded. But the index is still not very high. These flowers absorbing radiation? Chu Xiu switched his suit from jacket to full body mode. Bay. Xiao responded. At the same time, he bent down and picked up a black stone from the ground. What is this? Chu Xiu asked. Graphite, on the reactor core, Bay. Xiao replied calmly. At the same time, it was checked with a Geiger counter at close range. The result is only 40 Ronchians. To no point in the last century, the nuclear power plant in Maoxian country leaked, and the Ronchian index was measured in 10,000. The radioactive material attached to the graphite has completely evaporated. Bay Xiao said, and picked another flower from the ground. If the flowers were indeed absorbing the radiation, the Geiger counters must have detected something. Drip. The results are still normal. Although the value exceeds 20 Ronchians, which is safe for human beings, it is also far below the index that nuclear leakage should have. The flowers absorb only a small amount of radiation. After Bay Xiao finished speaking, he raised his head and looked in the direction of the nuclear power plant. What really absorbs radiation should be something else. Chapter 200. Enter the nuclear power plant. Peaceful coexistence? With doubt, the two entered the interior of the nuclear power plant. Because there is still a small amount of radiation around. So, whether it is Chu Xiu or Bay Xiao, they all switched to the full body mode. To make sure nothing goes wrong. Through a gorgeous sea of flowers, Chu Xiu and Bay Xiao came to the main control building of the nuclear power plant, not far from the two leaking cooling towers. Until here the Geiger counter just started to blare. Siren, 5000. Ronchian, still within control. Bay Xiao glanced at the numbers. Both her and Chu Xiu's suits can block the radiation erosion of 20,000 Ronchians. As long as they don't die and enter the leaking cooling tower, she and Chu Xiu are safe. Wait, there are living creatures in it. Just when Bay Xiao was busy checking the radiation level, Chu Xiu uses magnetic field to sense. It was found that the control building of the nuclear power plant is densely packed with a large number of biological magnetic fields. From the subtle differences in the magnetic field, there are zombies, beasts, and even living people here. The living are staying with the zombies? Chu Xiu wondered if he felt wrong. It is understandable that zombies and beasts stay together, but these two monsters stay with living people. And they live in peace. This is a bit of a fantasy. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. Chu Xiu looked at Bay Xiao. There may be a fight later. Do you have weapons? Facing Chu Xiu's question, Bay Xiao nodded. Then, from the waist of the battlesuit, he took out two strange weapons similar to pistols. Chu Xiu took a look. A strong electrical energy and magnetic field are induced from it. It was immediately clear that this was supposed to be some kind of electromagnetic weapon powered by graphene batteries. Gauss gun? Chu Xiu felt the magnetic field circuit of the gun. Guessed immediately how it works. Gaussian gun, also called a coil gun. It is actually similar to the principle of the electromagnetic railgun. They are all electromagnetic weapons that use the Lorentz force to launch. It's just that the railgun needs to conduct the electric rail to form a loop, so the ammunition must be a conductor, and the Gauss gun, that is a coil gun. Its principle is to pass a high energy current through an electromagnetic coil to generate a strong magnetic force and eject the internal ferromagnetic ammunition. If you have to say a difference, that is, railguns are suitable for large scale and can project large mass projectiles. Both range and power can be maximized. The Gaussian weapon is just the opposite. It is more suitable for miniaturization. The rate of fire and muzzle velocity of the weapon can be increased to a greater extent. Gauss Pistol, rudimentary. Maximum rate of fire 300 magnetized steel needles per minute. The muzzle velocity of the bullet is 900 meters per second. Beizao briefly introduced points due to the ammunition of the Gaussian weapon. It is just a small magnetized steel needle. So in a magazine, hundreds of steel pins can be loaded. A pistol can deliver the firepower of a machine gun. Energy. Production. Chu Xiu asked key questions. Can Bei Zio replied. After a small interlude, the two entered the control building of the nuclear power plant one after the other. The building was pitch black. The air is also very cloudy. Only the safety passage signs in the corridors were glowing green. It didn't take long to walk along the corridor. The roads for the two of them encountered obstacles. And that hinders. There are countless zombies and beasts. In the dim corridor, these guys were densely packed, one against the other. Block the road to the control hall. There is a living person. Chu Xiu noted that, in this crowd of zombies, there was a male survivor in his 30s. But neither zombies nor beasts attacked him. Exactly. It was all the creatures here, except Chu Xiu and Beizao, who stood there dumbfounded, motionless. Like dead people. Do not. It should be said that it is like a plant. Beizao stepped forward. He inspected a zombie up close, and even used a flashlight to look at the zombie's pupils. Even so, the zombie didn't attack Beizao either. Have you found anything? Seeing that Beizao was not attacked, Chu Xiu put down his guard. Can you help me with the live dissection? Mainly the brain. Beizao thought for a moment, then said suddenly. Chu Xiu did not speak, just manipulating a few pieces of iron along the gap of the skull, precisely cut the brain of this zombie. Beizao saw this. Immediately, he took out some small handheld devices from the pockets of his combat uniforms. Then, surrounded by a bunch of zombies and beasts, research started. How long will it take? Chu Xiu asked. Ask for flowers for a few minutes. You can take a look by the side, or you can move on by yourself. Beizao said without raising his head. Then I move on. 5. Chu Xiu thought about it. The surrounding metal objects flew over. Immediately kill the zombies and beasts that are densely packed in the corridor one by one. The killed body was pushed to both sides by Chu Xiu's repulsive magnetic field, trying to make a path for walking. As for the living ones, Chu Xiu stopped in front of him and scanned it with the system. Name, NONES*X, male, talent, none. The strange thing is, only one gender was scanned by the system. Everything else is nothing. Can't even the system scan the information? Chu Xiu frowned. Finally, thought moved, and a piece of metal flew over, killing the living person. However, at the moment, when Chu Xiu killed this person outside the nuclear power plant, in an area just past, the flowers on it suddenly withered. And as Chu Xiu killed more and more zombies, beasts, and living people, more and more flowers are dying outside. The scene that was originally colorful and gorgeous like a sea of flowers is shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the radiation index of the Geiger counter also began to gradually increase. Chu Xiu in the main control building was unaware of the changes in the outside world. At this time he has passed through the corridor and came to the control hall of the nuclear power plant. The control hall was still crowded with zombies and beasts. They are without exception. Both face the middle of the hall. As if there was something there that was attracting them. No wonder I didn't encounter zombies and beasts along the way. It's all here, Chu Xiu said, while cleaning up the monsters in the hall. Because of being in a nuclear power plant that has leaked, Chu Xiu did not rashly use elemental abilities such as lightning. Just manipulating the metal kill these zombies and beasts that will not fight back one by one. Say kill. It's more like slaughter, because they don't even move at all. Soon, all the zombies and beasts in the periphery were killed by Chu Xiu. At this time, Chu Xiu also saw the scene in the middle of the hall. After a moment of trance, a vague and graceful figure appeared slowly in the middle of the hall. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.